Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I am here with Brit. What's up, Brit?
Hello, hello.
And today we are talking about New 52 Superman. One of the biggest, missed opportunities, and this is the character that has been mistreated to the point where it basically blackpilled a lot of DC fans, including my friend here.
Yeah, the mistreatment and just the whole thing of and the pettiness when it came to dealing with his premature contrived death, and just that whole um rewriting of his history and just making it seem like he was just a bad character, an evil version of Superman, like on the same line of of injustice or something. I just really did not appreciate that because what he stood for and what he was supposed to be for the modern era, and now it's like DC wants to recapture that and is you can't recapture that modern freshness and that or even capture that just period when you're still holding on to the nostalgia of whether it's the stale marriage or the red underwear. That's just something that some things you have to let go.
Exactly, or
um
that he had a collar or something like that. So Cameron says, wait, hang on. I am getting an echo. Technical difficulties, folks. Brit, I believe that's on your end. All right, I'm just going to mute her real quick. She's dealing with technical issues, but wait, hang on. I think that might be me. Hang on for 1 second. I believe I am experiencing some technical issues. Hang on. All right, so let me see. What is... All right, well, okay, Britt, unmute yourself. Let's try this again. Hello? I think her microphone is having issues. But anyway, so let me reshare this and then we can get going. Apologies, folks. Man, don't just love show business. Man. By the way, Cameron says, oh, she's going to leave and come back in. Anyway, Cameron says, hey, guys. And as someone who grew up with this Superman, it's infuriating how people try to label him as the edgy Superman. Yeah, exactly. It's one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes with this character, because because when you think about it, and Brit's back. Testing. Wait, unmute yourself. Testing.
We're back.
All right, good. So anyways, so Cameron says, hey guys, and as someone who grew up with this Superman, it's infuriating when people write him off as edgy and not Superman. That's the thing. And obviously, as we go through the PowerPoint, we'll go over this. But the thing about New 52 Superman that people just, for some reason, don't get is he wasn't, apparently sound went out again. Dang it. He wasn't dark or anything like that. I mean, I don't understand where the he's dark came from. Is the sound still out, Brit? I'll take that as a yes. Anyway, while Brit figures that out, what other questions and comments do you all have? All right. And he says, what I liked about New 52 Superman is that he was about the mission first, even though he was in a relationship with Diana. He never once simped for her. Yes, and as Brit and I talked about, we will get to the fact that it was more of the world comes first thing. And then, oh, trust me. There's a reason why I don't really read Dan Jurgens' stuff for that. Hey, what's up, Tavia? How you doing? And then as we wait for Brit to show up, okay, let's try this again. Testing.
Okay, I think it's working.
Okay, all I see is a black screen. Okay.
Oh, okay. So I'm not sure what's going on.
All right. But anyway, so what do you think of Cameron's comment where he says, "Hey guys, and as someone who grew up with Superman, it's infuriating of people write him out as edgy and not Superman." Because that's the thing. Depending on the story, or really when you actually read his stuff, which these people clearly don't, he's not.
Yeah, the most of the time when you hear uh what detractors say about New 52, you and you've said this too. You was like, "Have you read New 52 Superman?" And there's like, "No, I just saw a few clips. I mean, not clips, but a few panels, or they've uh, went to Twitter and just got their information from there, but didn't actually go read it themselves." And that's the problem. A lot of these fans, they want to basically jump on the bandwagon with the what's popular for the moment. So if they are hating on New 52, then that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And Randy says, what I liked about New 52 Superman is he's got the mission first. Even though he was in a relationship with Diana, he never went simper. Yes. And as Brit and I have brought up many times, that's because, and this is the part that got me to get Brit to not hate the Crisis movie anymore, is because the mission always comes first with those two. The world comes
Right,
first.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
And yeah, go ahead.
well, yeah. I think what I wanted though was I just wanted them to have a happy ending. I didn't like the you basically get war flashbacks or like whiplash or something with the fact that one of them has to die. And it's like we
Mhm.
just dealt with that with New 52. Can we just have a happy ending? And the one thing that I thought too was with Craig wanting to do like Kingdom Come, like yeah, that you could have, incorporated that ending with that and just even with Crisis, they didn't necessarily die. They just had an happy ending, and that was the end. Yeah, so yeah, but you did have to convince me that that is the one thing that they do is at the end, their happiness is sacrifice. And then we had Immortal Wonder Woman too with that.
Yes.
So it's like every time one or the other has to die. It's like, no.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things where, yeah. And by the way, we have a fellow Dan Jurgens hater. Good boy.
Yeah. Yes.
That will serve you well on this channel. Tevia says, I will give New 52 Superman this. His fight with Zod and Ursa with Wonder Woman was cool. Yes, it was. And particularly him punching Apollo in the face, which I had a blast recreating that. By the way, and Britt can tell you, I voice a mean Lois Lane.
You do. That was funny.
I was
No.
trying to channel my most annoying as crap voice. Andrew says, "Oh yeah, Siegel and Schuster didn't want Superman and didn't want Lois and Clark as Endgame. It would kill Superman as ongoing Superman story." Yeah, exactly. So let's get. Oh, apparently another Brit has joined us. We have clones of Brit. Is this you, Brit? Okay,
So can you hear me now?
what's going on? Okay, hang on. I'm gonna remove this one. Okay, test, test, test. Still not working. So your profile picture's on the one below me, but the sound is coming out of the black screen one.
Is it?
I'll try this again. All right, Britt, say anything. Yep, yep. This is weird.
Very weird. Can you
Oh,
hear?
now I hear you. Now I hear you.
Okay. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I think what it is the app and the internet is kind of like clashing.
Oh, it's a battle of the sexes, if you will. It's a battle for domination. Anyway, so again, so New 52, and Britt and I have said this many times. This is basically a return to the classic Golden Age era Superman, where he was like a champion of the oppressed. Is that right, Britt?
Yes. And the thing is, what's so funny is how if you are first, these self-proclaimed like top um know-it-all Superman fans say if you go basically anything that strays away from the 1986 version of Superman post-crisis, then you are not a fan. That is not the real Superman. They truly believe that Superman was created in 1986.
Or like according to them, the only version that they care about is that version.
Right. But the fact that you read Action Comics #1 and we saw, you can put that story in modern times of the New 52, and that
It's
is
very much,
exactly him.
that is in no way post-crisis Superman.
No way. Post-crisis Superman, he actually acts like that, very much a coward. And the thing is, yes, Clark Kent, that whole masquerade of being a coward, of being a klutz and a big galoot, it was a mask. It wasn't real. Um, Even Smallville Clark, he isn't a klutz. He isn't this big doofus type character. So it's very complex. You want that complexity in a character, but the way that these fans just have stripped Clark of his complexity, and it's just Clark Kent or Superman. It's no
Well,
in between. It's no like he has to be this golden retriever type way about
yeah,
himself.
this big galoot. By the way, my problem with Smallville, and this is why I'm not a big fan of that show. It has some good moments, but I have some very strong opinions about it. It's because when you because there was an episode, Brit, where Lana got superpowers and they
Yes,
basically Dark Knight Returns, Superman banged. And I'm
they
like, and when the marketing involves so much about it's the sexiest show on TV, and I'm like, oh,
well,
shut up.
that was the early 2000s,
I
and
know
that was
it doesn't make it any better though.
true. But yeah, it was the early 2000s, and the thing with that is the double standards.
Hmm.
The double standards between, you know, Lana or Lois having powers, and it's like, oh my gosh, with Superman fans, they want to say, oh, now they can bang, but when it's Clark and Diana, we as SuperWonder fans, we don't really care for that.
Hmm.
It's kind of like we want to see them as friends, as equals, understanding each other, having those conversations about their different perspectives and stuff.
Yeah,
The romantic relationship or them banging or whatever, that is basically a bonus, but
it's a very good
it's,
bonus. Yes, exactly.
yeah, but it's like, it's so far down the list of why we enjoy that pairing. And but you can really tell that these Superman fans are very hypocritical and they have double standards. And just again, the way that some of the fans on Twitter, especially, want to like have this revisionist type mentality for New 52 Superman of, oh, if he was with Lois, then we would have liked him better.
Or if he
But
didn't have the collar or anything like that. And I'm like, you're really obsessing about the collar. By the way, Omen Lamb says, "Hey everyone, I'm new to the channel. I am a normie. I love DC, but only consume the live action films. Currently attempting to get into comics. Welcome, and well, you've come to the right source. Trust me, we know." We know how tough it is to get into comics. That's part of what this channel is. It's a resource to help you navigate this journey, and I hope you stick around. So welcome. Randy says, "Why stop at the red trunks? Let's go all the way and bring back the phone booth." Yeah, exactly. If we're going for
oh
nostalgia,
yeah,
why
I
not
mean,
bring back the phone booth? Watching the Superman movie, there'll be a scene where like he'll find an abandoned phone booth that still exists, and he'll change in it. The
I
the
mean,
or he'll hide his costume in the phone booth.
oh my goodness. What's weird is that the movie is set in 2025, and it definitely feels like it's from the early 90s, 80s or something like that. It's 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 just they're trying to recapture these. They know that it's popular. Yeah, Reed, Donner, they're popular. We get it. But at the same time, it's held Superman back for so long because you think that that is who he's supposed to be. But even Christopher, he was like the klutzy, that um bumping into stuff, that type of attitude, it gets boring. And he was tired of playing that role. He wanted Clark, Clark Kent, to progress into just being himself. And that's who New 52 Superman was. He wasn't a bumbling idiot or something like that. He wasn't, this golden retriever type mentality of in this perfect Boy Scout. He was a good person, um, but he didn't take any nonsense. And he bullied the bullies. That's what Golden Age Superman was supposed to be. He was supposed to be the voice and basically the strong fist for the oppressed. And for you to, or the fans to, and even writers like Jurgens to, I guess it's some things that Jurgens tried to take from New 52, like the super beard, for instance, something as minor as that, I would say. He took to Twitter and he would say, just remarks about his relationship with Diana, and the super beard. But we saw in Convergence, or that
His
um
Superman had a beard.
had a
That's
beard.
the funny part. But I'm not complaining because Superman, like me, looks way better with a beard. Trust me. I'm the
But it's just
guy that if I don't have a beard, I look like I'm much younger than I actually am.
it's just those little things. Or even there was a Twitter user who was basically reading over New 52 and Rebirth, and
Hmm.
he called out um the the double standards of Jurgens. And he, you know made me realize, oh, so it's only because you don't like this version, because it's not the version that you're writing, or because he is in a different relationship. And I don't understand, like, the obsession with these fictional characters and their romantic relationship. It really feels like
It's
very much,
unhealthy.
yes, it's very unhealthy, and it's living vicariously through these characters, and this obsession with self-inserting yourself with these characters. And I, yeah, maybe in real life, some people, they some have admitted to not be interested in, like, a real life relationship, but that doesn't mean you have to dictate a fictional relationship.
Exactly. So here are some of the misunderstandings about Superman, about this version. One, he was too angry or too edgy. Here's the part that I'm going to address that one first, Britt. Here's the part that really blows my mind about that. Have you met post-crisis Superman? The dude was if anything, post-crisis was more edgy than New 52. And by the way, real quick, Omen Lamb says, "Sorry about my spelling. I'm from South Africa. English is my fourth language. It's all good, dude. It's all good. Trust me. Everyone has that. Don't worry about it, man." And then I will give one bone to the critics about the suit. The artist, at least in my opinion, never did a good job of showing the suit as nano. Well, they did. It depends on the art on the book, because they showed it in the main Superman book, if I remember correctly, and in Unchained, that when he's opening the shirt, you can see like the nanotech like forming around him.
And honestly, you are blending the sci-fi-ness that Superman is missing. Yeah, it's cute and adorable when you have Superboy to say that my mom made my suit for me, but having a grown man with, obviously, if it is to be shown live action, his mom, stitched his suit. So you're basically in a pajama onesie and red like boxer shorts that doesn't look right in live action. You can go whimsical in comic books and stuff, but in modern day, it does make sense for Superman to have a nanotech suit because it does emphasize more on his Kryptonian heritage and how it is more science based. So it does make sense, but it's not taken away from his humanity as some want to force that accusation, or it doesn't take away from the Kents because the Kents still taught
Raised
Clark,
him.
raised him, right? They taught Clark, who, um, so many things, how to be humble, instilled in him these values that makes him the inspirational, hero that he is supposed to be. And honestly, they are supposed to be his number one inspirations. Even what you read last night for Action Comics 1, he was the Kents weren't involved in the first iteration of Superman. Um, he crashed landed on Earth, was found by a motorcyclist, and then taken to an orphanage. And what happened? He still became Superman. If anything, having Clark raised in an orphanage of kids that um, basically come from all different backgrounds and have lost their parents somehow, or the parents um, if he is in an environment where he sees the less privileged, you know, that is even more inspiration for him because he is actually in that environment. With the Kents, yeah, they have instilled in him a lot, but at the same time, that's what made it feel like post-crisis Clark was very privileged, because he has such a wholesome, perfect way of life growing up. He didn't really have um, uh, challenges, and that's the thing that I don't like about even Mark Waid's writing because he wants Clark to be so perfect. He wants Clark to not make mistakes, not actually be challenged, even if he is
Speaking of no stakes,
right. Even if he is challenged, it's that he's going to easily, get a fix at the end. That it is going
exactly.
to end up being a happy ending. So where is the challenge? Where's the investment of truly seeing this character growth? Um,
Exactly. And Barry, so what do you think about the post-crisis fans? Post-crisis, calling this Superman angry and edgy.
the thing is with post crisis Superman, he was first of all he had to go to therapy because he couldn't, you know, um, keep his feelings in check, while he was married. Um,
Many a man that's been married to Lois Lane struggles with those issues.
and then, from what I've seen from comments, from like message boards when they would have this back and forth, one fan actually brought up that post crisis Superman, he always it felt like he needed to be handheld and he needed to be told what to do.
Mhm.
He flew back home constantly instead of being like this grown man who knew his, how to, juggle his responsibilities. He kept going home to get like the simplest um, uh, advice that basically he could have, given himself, and and also just the fact that he would give up easily and with the self kind of like the self-hatred and the self like resentment of his Kryptonian heritage and that veiled xenophobia that we saw in the Byrne run or throughout post-crisis of him, feeling like, oh, he's going to turn against other aliens or um, he he kept saying, I I see myself as only human. Even in the convergence um tie-in, when John was born, the reason why he named him Jonathan wasn't out of the honor of the man who raised him. It was basically because that's a human name. And I'm like, that is so shallow and just really disrespectful. If you're gonna name your son after the man who raised you, at least let it be after the man who raised you, not just to say this is a human name and I just think of myself as human.
Exactly.
That really doesn't sit right, and it's not something that it's not profound, and it's just not. It is a very negative thing.
Yeah.
Um,
So then you get to I hate when people call him not the real Superman, and I'm like, well, according to DC, he is the real Superman. What do you
and
mean he's not the real Superman? He lacked heart. Did you read his stuff? I'm gonna answer my own question. No. Or his relation. Now, here's the thing: with the relationship with Diana, it may have been sudden, like they didn't really build up that much to it. That's true. And Brit and I have criticized it for that. But to say it wasn't necessarily fan service, I'm like, what fan service? They've never been together in the main continuity besides this.
with the fan service, it's kind of like what Jurgen said about it being fanboy porn. It's because, or how Tony Daniel or Yannick Paquette,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's his name,
Yeah,
said that it was too risque and too sexy. It's something that it obviously you can feel their chemistry. You can feel that it's an effortless thing between them, and because it's a natural thing, a natural relationship. Um, so to say that it's forced, it's only forced in that sense, because, well, honestly, it's not. It's really no justification for saying that it's forced. Any detractor, they would call anything forced. When you force something, it has to be where they never had any type of interaction, any type of romantic history throughout, whether it is comics, Elseworlds, or anything like that. Now that is forced. Kind of like what He Who Shall Not Be Named 999, um that ruined live action Justice League.
okay.
Um
I know who you're talking about.
yeah, who had Bruce Banner and Natasha together. It That is
Mm-hmm.
forced because that
Yeah.
definitely came out of nowhere, and they never had any type of romantic relationship prior. Um, you know,
Or it's like the other thing. It's like if you want to talk about fan service, how about nuking this Superman so you could put Superman back with Lois? I'm pretty sure that's fan service.
that is fan service too, and also you didn't even have the justification. You didn't have the sales justification for it. It was basically just a biased preference of the editorial and the writers, because Dandy Didio said that they were lazy and scared.
The DC lazy and scared? No.
Yeah, and I mean, for an editor to admit that they are lazy and scared of, different ideas is, again, it's not a flex. It's definitely a self drag that you don't want to do,
Exactly.
and it really shows that's basically any type of potential fans that you may garner, new fans that in investment. Yeah, you basically shot yourself in the foot.
Exactly. And then you get he was too detached from humanity. I cite Justice League by Jeff Johns, where he literally brought Diana to Smallville. And he says, "Yeah, I come here because it helps connect me to it keeps me." He basically says like, "So I never forget why I fight." So, Britt, who lives in Smallville?
The Kents and Lana and Clark.
I'm talking broadly. What like
Oh,
what?
humans,
Yes.
mortals.
So if he's
Yes,
going to a place that's filled with humans because it reminds him about what he's doing, how does that separate him from humanity?
exactly. I mean, it's a lot of panels or whatever that we can throw um, at these detractors that debunks everything that they've said. Yeah, Clark with Justice League saying to Diana that you know, just the kind couple that runs the diner and getting pancakes from them, that fills Clark with so much joy, and that is, even just pancakes makes him want to fight for Earth, you know?
Yeah, I
Um
know.
that is the sweetest thing ever and so innocent. Um and when he says that the reason why he doesn't wear a mask is because he wants people to see his face as Superman. And he doesn't want them to fear him. But
Oh,
it's Clark
sorry.
Kent.
Luffy brings up a good point. The best part of Clark saying Smallville is the reason why he fights is because Lois is not included in it.
Exactly. Yes.
But
That's
by the way, real quick, I want to highlight Luffy's comment. Superman going to therapy due to being married to Lois actually makes sense. Yeah, that's what
yes.
I'm saying. Right. And Cameron says, as I've said before, the Lois is his connection to humanity being so prevalent or popular. It erases everything about Smallville. Yeah, exactly. And by Omen Lamb says, I found your channel because I wanted to truly understand the gripes of comic book fans online. Oh, well, you came to the right place, brother. You're more than welcome here. And yeah, it's one of the yeah. Here's the thing. Again, most of these Clovis fans, it's like how Clovis fans are like the Wonder Bat fans because when you look at their arguments, it's mostly like what what Superman does for Lois and not what Lois does for Superman beyond the really stale argument of she helps ground him to humanity. Where when you go to like the Wonder Bat fans, it's mostly what Wonder Woman would do for Batman, she wouldn't, and not what Batman could possibly bring to her besides a very traumatic psyche.
Which we will get into later on.
Oh yes. Oh yes. So then, okay, so champion of the oppressed. Because here's the thing. And Brit, you bring up really well here because Superman. When you look at the powers that Superman had when he showed up in the 30s, it was just flight. No, actually, it wasn't flight. It was the ability to leap tall buildings in a single bound, super strength, enhanced speed. That's it. He didn't have the heat vision, didn't have frost breath, anything like that. That's what happened there. And he basically was fighting against government corruption. That's who he was.
Yes. And we got that in Action Comics. Even, you know what? I would say that what's Lobdell, the only thing that he really contributed to um, Superman well was Clark leaving the Daily Planet because of the corruption, media corruption by Morgan Edge, and also having him as a blogger. But other than that, everything else that Lobdell did was that's pretty. His run is why New 52 Superman has the bad reputation. And the thing is, Lobdell, just as any other writer who is very confident or whatever, in or conceited in a way of what they believe they're doing right, um, and wanting that controversy. He was one that was so stuck on controversy, especially with trying to bring in unnecessary drama between Clark and Diana and their relationship. Even the misconstruing what happened in Azarello run when Diana kissed Orion. You know, it's like you took that totally out of context and tried to make some type of drama thing within, the storyline that he was building. And then with Lois too, he basically said that being with Diana was a monkey wrench or a speed bump for Clark to get with Lois. But at the same time, you're just one writer. You're not um in control of the whole narrative of the New 52.
Yeah.
So
And by real quick, I just want to say, Andrew Melly sends a $10 Canadian super chat. Thank you, man. And it says it was the Dio who wanted a super son and thought it was making money. Here's the thing, Brit.
exactly.
If they wanted
Yeah.
a super son, they could have given Clark and Diana a kid
You know what? That's
instead of completely upending the status quo.
the thing is, see that whole thing is very complicated because the reason why um they gave so the synergy was beginning in DCEU already. They were that is when the storyline of Lois being pregnant, but no one knew, of course, the idea that at first it was going to be Bruce's child.
Mm-hmm.
um and then of course it changed to be Clark's, but still the child would end up to grow up to be Batman in honor of Uncle Bruce. um but it was still that synergy that Lois is going to have a child, so they wanted that in some way. And then the fact of the clout. Um, Jurgens got clout again for the journey of BVS adapting Death of Superman. But the thing is, Frank Miller kind of got clout too, because BVS also adapted, in a sense, DKR. And that is pretty much why we got the Golden Child. They wanted that if Frank Miller were to, I guess, basically agree to have his world of the Millerverse, you know, incorporated in DC, in the DCU multiverse, um, then we would have had more of the of Clark and Diana's kids from there, or they would have integrated within, yeah, New 52. But Jurgens took advantage of the clout that he gained. He swindled the deal, thinking that, oh, I can bring up a child for Lois and Clark, because he wanted to write the marriage again. And it's kind of like, okay, the marriage is stale. They, what else can you bring to that would make sense for it to even be, basically. And so what Jurgen said was that he basically, thought of that John was to be a playmate and Didio too, a playmate for Damien. And um, the thing is, it didn't have the backing, the sales of it. We saw that with Convergence, how terrible, those 2 months was for DC when they were moving um, I think New York to Burbank.
Yeah.
And then trade sales just plummeted. Then the conversion spinoff, that it barely made 30K, and it, free fell from there. And even
Real
though they
quick,
were, mhm.
real quick. Omen Lamb says, I hope you don't disappoint guys, but I fell in love with Batman Wonder Woman because of the Justice Unlimited. It felt natural. Injustice. Okay, Injustice is. I'm gonna bring this up, Omen. Injustice is like not to be taken as realistically what would happen with these characters, because Injustice itself, as I've said many times, is a sweater made by someone that's never made a sweater before. As for DCAU, to each their own. The problem with that is that with that universe, they basically didn't, they've admitted they didn't know what to do with Wonder Woman, so they made her a bat sim. Anyway, Britt, back to what you're saying.
Okay, I want to add to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to clarify, yeah, Justice Unlimited, you can like it.
Yeah.
However, the Wonder Woman that is there, that's not the Wonder Woman in comics, and that is not, again, what Jared said, that the Wonder Woman there, she is basically, they didn't know what to do with her. So they thought, oh, to make her cool or, I guess, relevant to whatever, make her a, yeah, like you said, Batman simp. And but her world was very, disregarded, and um, if you want, it's not really natural because she was portrayed as more like they wanted her to be. To me, sometimes it's like they want to make her Selena Kyle light, a lighter version of her, or a nicer version of her. But if you read, and we recommend reading George Perez run for Wonder Woman, you will get a better understanding of Diana. Now, Injustice is very much Bizarro Kingdom Come. It is not something to take for Clark and Diana's relationship, because the reason why those versions are bad is because of Lois and Steve. It's not because of their relationship. Again, if you want to understand their relationship, you can read Power Couple, you can read Kingdom Come itself, Immortal Wonder Woman, or Perez Run. And even Wonder Woman or JLA, League of One, or something like that. But Injustice, yeah, is not something to take literal, because that is not the characters at all.
Yeah,
Um,
it only exists to justify the fighting game. By Randy says the Convergence Lois and Clark book should have been a red flag to them to say we can't do this. Well, yeah, because that book flopped harder than anything Tom King has ever written.
Yeah, and the DO said that when he left DC, he went on a podcast, I believe, and he said that it's some things within Rebirth that he regretted, bringing back, because they saw the results of it. So it's like, yeah, you very much being shady and shading about bringing back the marriage, because that was the whole thing. But yeah, it's basically what happened was Jurgens was able to get clout and get control of Superman because of the DCU synergy, and that basically snowballed of him uh, being a wrecking ball for New 52. What what they wanted to do, I believe that he really wanted to put New 52 Superman with New 52 Lois, but it just felt like, honestly, it was a battle between uh, the sales, because even though Tomasi was purposely ruining the book, it still had had better sales than the Convergence spinoff, which was, again, very much a red flag of, if you're trying to ruin a relationship and it still sells better than the relationship you are trying to push, that should say, tell you a lot. Um, And even with John, his only contribution, or lack thereof, with existing, was for Damien to um
Have a
do,
playmate.
yeah, have a playmate. And because Damien is his own character, he has his own storyline, he's very much independent. It, John doesn't have anything. I mean, right now they aged him up, and he's now on the Secret Six, and I guess they're trying to find a place for him, and he just doesn't work.
Yeah, he is redundant when you have Connor. Anyway, so then you go. So the thing about New 52 Superman. This is how I know that like these people didn't actually read any Superman before post crisis, as Brit has said, is because again, this was basically going back to the golden age. That's what honestly New 52 kind of was for like a lot of different characters. It was a return to the more golden age iteration of the characters, but they updated it in a way that it didn't seem like a nostalgia bait like incident. It was more like we're going back to the general vibe of the way these characters used to be, but if that vibe existed nowadays.
Yeah. And I will also say that, um, I should have, I think I sent you the image, but adding to with what they're trying to do with Absolute, you're trying to, and I said this before we got started the stream, it's like they're trying to do the same thing, have Absolute Superman be New 52 2.0, but even a little bit more um darker, I would say. but for some reason, he is accepted a little bit, you know. And with post-crisis Superman, the acceptance of him is only out of the comfort. It's a comforting thing, and you don't have to feel that um fans complain about stuff being predictable, but again, as I said earlier, post-crisis Superman is very much dealing with the predictableness of his storylines. As I said, you don't have those challenges. You have to have a happy ending for him. He has to be this center of DCU for just because he is the first Superman overall is the first hero, but he doesn't actually have that um he hasn't earned that. You know what I'm saying? It feels like he is given that only by
Default.
default. And
It's true.
and with post crisis, it's like I said, it's a comfort, and it's also it's because it's so middling, and that it did last for a good 25 to 30 years. This is why, or the importance of the multiverse, and why different iterations should be given a chance. Because when you have pushed just this one iteration for so long, that is what the fans think. This is the end all be all.
Hmm.
And and that's pretty much the problem, is that you feel like now it's a get off my lawn type situation, even with new fans, or you know I wouldn't say new fans, because some of them are kind of like New 52 who came within New 52 and stayed, and kind of have changed their mindset because of this kind of like head bashing of this is the version you should accept only. And so some of them have taken that mindset. Um, and yeah, to say that, and Tomasi said that, that was just so rude, because again, we aren't all sheep. We aren't just this herd that should follow the same direction. We all have our
Exactly.
different preferences. We all have our different likes and dislikes, and we have these certain uh, ideas, or I guess the way the character, let me see.
Well, here's the thing as well. When you have these nostalgic creators like Tomasi and Jurgens and stuff, that, or like Wade, who say you shouldn't want this, and I'm like, okay, you don't get to tell the customer what they shouldn't want of your products. Well, it's not your products, but when you're an
I get what you're saying.
independent contractor for DC, and the way that this is supposed to work is you look at what the fan base wants, and you give them what the fan base wants. Like, what the fan base wants, a more, for lack of a better term, edgy universe, you have to provide it. If you don't like that, don't write for DC. And by Medley brings up a good point by a $5 Canadian super chat. Thank you, sir. Jeff helped kill the New 52 by bringing his rebirth crap from pre New 52. Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying Jeff Johns is like blameless, but it's like, it's the idea again. It's like when you force your nostalgia onto things and say you should like this or you shouldn't like this. I'm sorry, that's not the way of businesses work. And this isn't like you're doing your own. It's not like Mark Waid owns these characters and so he can dictate what the fan base necessarily wants. No, you don't get to do that. The fan base it dictates what they want, and you have to provide it. That's part of running a business. If you don't like it, there is a very special thing that really helps in this scenario, bro. It's called the door. That's it. But real quick, Owen Lamb says, as a normie, is it a bad mindset that whenever I see anything Golden Age, it looks lame to me? The design, the underwear, and the outside look good for me. Yeah. What we're talking about, it's not, you're not wrong, Lamb. But what we're talking about is like you could take elements from it, like the way Superman was characterized, not necessarily like the underwear on the outside of the suit, which I agree looks freaking dumb, but you can take like certain elements from Golden Age Superman and take that and apply it to the modern age Superman. So that way you can like combine the old and the new, not throw out the new.
Right. I mean, okay. So, yeah, let's talk about the costume because I don't think that I put that in the notes, but might as well. So, the costume. Okay. So, as I said earlier, with having, and this is perfect because Mark Waid, and it's kind of crazy how Mark Waid is like writing so much of everything for DC. It's like they don't have new blood. It's the same uh five, feels like five writers. Um, but he is writing the adventures of Superboy in Action Comics, and he has Superboy with the classic costume of the cape, the onesie, and red underwear that looks like oversized boxers or something with the belt, and he has on high top Converses. That's, I mean, that is what a child would wear, as a costume, Halloween or something like that. Or yeah, some um like I said, whimsical type cartoony character that's starting out as a hero. Um and that works, because it's Superboy. So you want that type of, like I said, whimsical mentality. But when he grows up to be a grown man, yes, we want to have a more serious um, costume for him. The 2025 suit, the elements that they wanted, first they wanted, it seemed like what James Gunn wanted was the new 52 suit. Um, with the collar, with the lines, and um, but I honestly don't know if the belt would have been like what that would have been because it was actually Corn Sweat that said he wanted to have the underwear on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's honestly just
Thanks,
the Fortnite
bro.
suit. It's the Fortnite suit. Um,
It looks like a diaper. That's what it looks like.
it does look like a diaper because it's not attached. It doesn't look it honestly, if they say that it wants to break up the colors,
Then
I
just
mean,
make it like a certain coloring there. Don't make it its own separate thing.
yeah, it's just the way it is, it doesn't look right. And like you said, it does look like a big red diaper that's kind of just in the way. It's very um distracting from the suit. And if you're going to have the underwear, you can't have the collar. It just seems like it's too much. Even with Fortnite, it just does not look right. Um, but with modern time, and just like we said earlier, it needs to be nanotech.
Yeah, because that way it also explains where the hell the suit goes when he is Clark Kent. And by the way, Omen Lamb says, but I just don't want to go back to the to the Gold Age Flash. Well, that's a different character in and of itself compared to Barry Allen, so I would never really like go back to it. But yeah,
Oh, Jay Garrick.
yeah. So it's Jay, but still, it's like yeah. I get that. I get what the trunks represented in the beginning, but here's the thing: it's like
Right.
here's how you can know about this, and this was like a big eye-opening moment for me. I was bored one day and I was watching this more child-oriented superhero movie, and someone said we can't be superheroes. They wear their underwear on the outside of their pants, and I'm like, so even other people was like a was are making jokes about this, and it just looks stupid, honestly. So I'm like, just don't do. If you want to break up the coloring, either draw it as like one piece, or just have a belt like the New 52 is. Wait, look, it's a magical belt. Isn't that magical?
And even the lines, you know, it really
Here's the
it
thing,
did
though.
depend.
The lines also make people think it's actual like body armor. It's not. It's actually like a. It's actually like a regular suit, as you can see in like the Grant Morrison Action Comics. So I'm like, yeah, you don't. Yeah,
The the thing is with the lines though, it worked because I think Jim Lee and Tony Daniel, Jason Fabok, Ed Benz, mm, I think that's it, who really drew the New 52 suit as kind of like metallic slick.
hmm
So it with
that's what it
the
looks like.
that's what that's what made the suit because it was kind of like this metallic type slickness to it. And so the lines it worked, you know, for that. But with corn sweatsuit and with the lines and
And the belt that looks like it's not on all the way.
the belt looks very it looks fake. It looks plastic. um the and
Oh, and also, if you notice, there was some new images that came out, a poster of him with his arms crossed, and the suit is like all wrinkly.
yes, that as well. But also just even the variant covers for the movie and how it's so many lines. It's far worse than any complaint that they had of the new 52 suit.
Yeah,
The
I
line
know. And then everyone is like so like eating it up, and I'm like, yeah, that's the hypocrisy that I see, because I'm like, oh, and also, how about this one where you first started off and he was just wearing a shirt, t-shirt, and jeans.
I that really gave him the the feeling of the champion of the oppressed and the man of the people. To say that Superman he has to have on the red underwear and all of that to look like yeah it is derived from the strong man, you know, wrestler type um aesthetic, but again modern day we're past that. And you know and with just having the jeans and tee and he looks like the farm boy, just that very approachable, regardless of his alienness. That is what we wanted. That is what made him, this version of Superman, New 52, so humble and so real, you know, because he, at that time, he wasn't as powerful. Again, going back to the golden age, he was at that power level. And so with giving him the jeans and the tee, it still was a callback to his humble beginnings as, you know, a boy in Smallville. Then we transition to the Kryptonian suit, which honors his Kryptonian heritage. That is how you blend the character. And that just, it felt more real and more natural for Superman, and especially in modern day with so many people really embracing their heritage. And even, you know, children who are adopted, they want to know their heritage and their families, you know, and they and just people period, they want to be more aligned with who they are. So to for writers to basically demonize that idea with a character who is supposed to be this immigrant and refugee allegory, it doesn't make sense. He is supposed to be that. He is supposed to be this even the Moses allegory, and if you know the story of Moses, and what does he do? And and it goes even with your favorite quote from the Man of Steel movie, with what Jor-El said to um that version of Superman.
Real quick, I love Lord Zed. I just woke from my nap. Has DC killed Lois yet? Not yet. We're all waiting for it. But go on.
So that that meant a lot, and that was very real. But it's kind of like the fans of post crisis, or they are just so in this, we just want a comfort. Even Joshua Williamson, the current Superman writer, he does not, he said something about not wanting controversy, even though he knows that controversy sells, and you know, getting basically fans to hate read it sells. It gets the you know get people in the stores, but he doesn't want to do that. He wants to have basically the fluff. And yeah, that works for a little bit, but we see currently how sales are dwindling. You don't want contrived controversy. You don't want controversy that will make the characters unlikable, like Tom King is doing. But a little sprinkle of drama that's natural, that again, give these characters actual challenges, that will make people invested. The events that DC has had so far, from Night Terrors, um, I think Mark Waid did something with a winter event. Um,
I know they did an event called Endless Winter.
that one, exactly.
That
That,
that was not Wade though.
who was that?
That was, hang on, I have the trade. Let me see. That was by Landing and Mars.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was, honestly, that was boring. I don't know what even that was. Um, then you had Absolute Power. You know, he wanted the drama of, John being possessed by the Brainiac Queen, but John um was healed, in like one or two issues. It's kind of like, okay, so where's the ongoing drama? And then after the event, where's the consequences? Yeah, it's some characters who have mismatched powers, but it really doesn't feel that way. Everything just feel like it has
They
gone
never
back to normal.
reference it, except for like maybe Aquaman, because you kind of have to. But
Yeah,
anyway.
it's Aquaman and Fire and Ice, and well, yeah, with Lois having powers, but it really just feels very like, it's not even it's obviously a gimmick, right?
It
But
is. They'll undo it soon.
yeah, but the characters who they basically switch the powers from, they are very, I want to say that Aquaman is an A-lister, so I don't want to say that, but I'm trying to just give the point that basically the B-list characters are the ones that kind of like switch powers, so you don't really care about them. But even with the Aquaman book, sales wise right now, it didn't create that much of a splash. So I would say that he's in a B-list category. But if you wanted to really show the consequences of absolute power, it should have been A-listers. I don't know. Definitely not give Batman powers. No. But
Exactly.
if, I don't, Superman were to switch with Wonder Woman, or Superman switch with Flash or something like that, that would have been something. But if you're just using the power switch with B-listers that you don't even reference anymore, that's, what's the point of the event, and what's the point of the so-called consequences? There is none. Um, so yeah, these writers are so lazy, like DL said, and we are seeing that in real time. Um, and honestly, if we were to if New 52 were to be said to come back, I would say maybe within 2020, I'd be like, okay, yeah, sure, bring it back. But now, basically 10 years later from 2015 2016 when they killed him off, I would say no, don't bring him back because he would be so watered down and he just wouldn't have that fire that
particularly
we
with particularly with the creative teams we have now at DC. But anyway,
exactly.
so what we essentially have is, and this is what I was talking about earlier. So the cool thing that they really did with this version of the character is, and Brit and I alluded to this earlier, is that he straight up he left he left the Daily Planet to become more of an independent journalist. And Brit and I have talked about that they need to this is one of the areas that they really need to modernize the character, particularly when it comes with when it comes to this, because no one reads newspapers anymore. So it's like, why do you like pander to that? So it's like, yeah, have him be more of an independent journalist. That way he can choose his fights. And then again, it was like this Superman was always going after like those who abused authority.
Yeah, I mean, the, they wanted a Superman of the 21st century, and you killed him off. Then you age up John, and the reason why you aged up John is for the 5G event. And for those that don't know what the 5G event it was basically ruining DC's already messed up continuity
Oh God. Well,
to
it flopped. No, literally no one wanted it.
yes, to force John in more than he already was. It was kind of like trying to put a square peg in a round hole, basically. He does not fit in continuity at all. You definitely have to cherry pick now. That is the one thing that Wade will be doing with this new DC history. Um, and with 5G, like I said, they were cherry picking things, trying to put stuff in order as a timeline. Wonder Woman was supposed to be the very first hero, which doesn't make sense for her because it really just shows that her mission for modern day is to bring peace to the world, to stop wars, to stop Ares and everything like that. To have her as the first hero and basically be an active hero for 100 plus years and no results to her mission, she's failed. So there's no point of her being the first hero. You have the JSA, though, that she inspired and stuff like that. Is very, very contrived, very pointless. Then Superman, he was to become a dictator basically. And Morrison alluded that it was a possibility of him becoming a dictator because Lois died. And this is the one thing about Injustice. It's not about Clark and Diana's relationship. It is Lois dying. They very much simplify that as Clark's only reason for caring for humanity. There's even a scene in the event Aquaman drowned where he consciously let thousands drown, but he to take Lois all the way to the fortress, the
Mm-hmm.
solitude. And Batman says that, oh, it's okay as long as Lois is safe, and it's very out of character. So you have those instances where Superman becomes a dictator only because of Lois. Um, and what's so bad about that was them using the Kingdom Come crest for that. So we're
Mm-hmm.
having that really disrespectful to the Kingdom Come story because again, with that story, Lois died, yes, but her death was not the catalyst for why Clark retired. And as many people want to, or Chloe's fans, want to push, his reason for retiring was because humanity itself turned its back on him and chose Magog over him, wanting, you know, uh, basically a more violent hero, or that they thought was a hero. And Batman, of course, was going to be the underdog and the ultimate hero to fight dictator Superman. John was to fight Clark too, I guess in honor of Lois dying. And Damian was going to be a villain as well. And Didio, he wanted this Charles Xavier and Magneto type relationship for John and Damian. So yeah, it was really messed up for 5G as to why John was aged up. And with Tom Taylor's book, you had DC promoting John as to be the 21st century Superman. And he was supposed to be a pacifist and fight climate change and stuff like that.
When there were characters that could solve climate change like that.
Yes, and you have in his first issue, you had them allude to um, a school shooting or attempted to. So John was there basically conveniently um, to stop a school shooting, and honestly, that really felt tone deaf, because you want to give him like this modern take. Yes. But at the same time, you put something that is so um raw at the moment, because I believe that at that time when the book came out, it was an actual active school shooting in real life.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to do that, and the way it was written and how fast it kind of like again, the consequences of that kind of thing. You want to act like it's a happy ending afterwards, but you don't show the emotion. You don't really give that respect to real world events. You want to reference real world events, but you don't really put the emotional effort into it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. So then you get to essentially the way they kind of shifted it slightly. Here's a more just discussion of his suit, because one of the things that they said, but by Andrew Metley drops it another $5 super chat where he goes, remember Action Comics 1000 yeah, by the way, guess who wrote that issue?
yes, Tom King.
It's almost like he's known for crappily writing relationships.
Yes,
Anyway, so what we get here with the suit, and yeah, it's more like blue, and with and the thing about it again is like with this character, and the reason why you like really identify with me, and with and particularly when paired with Man of Steel the movie. And this is what I tell people, is that if you want to read essentially what Man of Steel is kind of based on, it is this version of Superman, because this one was always trying to find a place to like belong and stuff. And that's also, and the next few slides deal with his relationship with Diana in depth, so we'll go on to that. But it's like how he was always trying to find a place that like fit in. And even what's actually really interesting, Brit, is that they kind of hint about this late in the Justice League book before he and Diana even get together. So it's a regular day at the Daily Planet, and everyone's like going to lunch, and essentially Lois goes, Lois invites Jimmy and everyone else, doesn't invite Clark. And then Clark remembers not being picked for like a basketball game at school. Then at that moment, he receives a text from Bruce, and it says, "Got any lunch plans?" Lunch plans would translate into him showing up at Arkham to tell Clayface to get back in his cell. But still, it's like, see, he kind of found his found family.
right. That is, see, those types of things are very much glossed over. Yes, Clark was he gave off this loner type mentality, as Clark Kent. And like he said, Clark Kent is the mask, you know. But at the same time, if Lois was written to care for him, even as a friend or just to be friendly, which is hard for writers to write Lois friendly. But if they were to, want to go with that and basically to give a reason as to why, if you want Clark to be in love with Lois or justify that relationship, we never see Lois actually be, respectful or nice to Clark like that. It's always a revisionist type scene that never happened, but all of a sudden it did happen as a flashback. Um, but other than that, yeah, she pretty much ignored him. And Clark at first, again with Lovedale, it was pining for Lois and him just it was very much a battle of these writers still wanting to write him as post-crisis. But the overall point is we saw him in his truth as Superman. And yeah, even if it was to put Clayface back in his cell, it was still the truth of who he was. Um, and yeah, Kenneth Rockefeller was the main artist, or one of the top five that drew the suit um perfect for me,
Mhm.
especially within this cover. It just seems so slick, and the lines, it blends in so well.
Yeah, you don't really notice that it's like that like has all the lines and stuff. So then we get to the reason Britt and I started this little podcast. His relationship with Diana of Themyscira, which again, so what this, so essentially what you get with this misconception is that it was fan service. Like, okay, you should be servicing your fans, but okay. Um, Fanboy porn. Uh, that was Dan Jurgens, and trust me, he should not be trusted. And or it's God's getting away from humanity. So Brit, let it rip.
All right, so here we go. First of all, and I thought of this last night because um just typing, of course, doing some of the story. Um and I noticed that Diana's initials, if she is to have the secret identity of Diana Prince, some detractors say, oh, she doesn't have LL as her initials. Well, first of all, having L as your initial, I would shoot back and say that stands for like L as in loser, but
Mm-hmm.
Diana's initial is a W, so that, basically a winner, for a W. And also, Diana Prince, the initials DP, also connects with the Daily Planet DP. So if you want to, be a little,
You just blew my mind.
I mean, it's very unique. This relationship is unique in different ways to connect. So if you want to talk about initials in that very superficial sense, then Diana again falls out of that traditional initial type connection and goes into something more unique of DP. So it's like, there you go. There is different ways to make this relationship so much fun. And any theme that detractors say, you can make it fun and debunk it, so easily. So with this relationship, it's about two immigrants, or more specifically, Clark being a refugee. And I've done a thread on this, and it's on Twitter. And it's them connecting in a very realistic world of judgment and expectations. They they are perceived as gods, but they're not. I mean, it's right there in the comics that they do not see themselves as gods, but the public sees them that way. You have the literal gods, Greek gods that down them and demean them, and you have you know Clark's lost culture of Krypton, and he wants to share it with Diana. And I loved Power and Glory because you have a Kryptonian god, Rao, that yeah, he did end up being evil in a sense, but it was that moment where Clark he felt so um in tune with his culture though. That for the first time we actually saw a Superman who was so excited to really be to share his culture with the world. And he was written to say that he wanted to share with Diana. Then we have in Power Couple, Diana learning how to speak Kryptonese. That's something that Lois has not been shown to do. You have Diana pushing him to share some of the things in the fortress or just himself, just be free. They're like free birds. And they have that understanding of, like I said, these expectations and and wanting to just be themselves. And also the line in Dawn of Atlantis when Clark says, it's not um being one of them in the sense of pretending to be something that you're not, to fit in. It's just blending in. Because in reality, we are blending in of all different cultures, all different backgrounds, all different ethnicities, all different ages and, sizes and
Hmm.
skin tones. We are all different. We all have different beliefs. We all have, different everything, but we blend in to make the world. And so that is something that Clark and Diana represent of who they are as characters. That's always been their message of just being yourself and being this inspiration for young kids to, have this unique imagination. Um, so when detractors say that this relationship is just about God's being away from humanity, yeah, obviously you don't read anything because the one of the main constant things in Power Couple was Clark and Diana just wanted to have time alone. And alone meaning whether it is to go on a date, or go look at the sunset, or something like that, or just go um be at whether it's Clark's apartment or Diana's apartment and just talk. Um, that's how it started. And then at the end of issue 7, we see them go out to London at a nightclub to go dancing. If they were trying to be detached from humanity, they wouldn't want to do that. They would be flying in the sky all the time. But no, they want to go dancing. That's the simple things like that. But yet you see with Williamson of Lois having the powers, how they want to go Clark, you know, taking Lois to the moon and wanting to was he like
They
throwing
want to have a rock throwing contest.
yeah, you having a rock throw, like to see how strong
Which
or
one
how
is really
far,
separating him from humanity?
yeah, to see how far you can throw a rock from the moon. And even Lois, she said that Clark was so happy to do all of these things that he never done with Lois because she has the powers now. And then it was Lois who was like, well, yeah, it's fun, but she just wants to be like regular. Even taking her to I think Amethyst Gym World to have
Mm-hmm.
a picnic. And it's like, oh, so Clark and Diana, again, they want to just go to simple restaurants. Diana, she just wants fish and chips. But you're taking Lois a a to Gym World to have a picnic. Just things like that. It's like there's a double standard in hypocrisy to how these relationships um are shown. And basically, so what's wrong here, or that you're saying wrong, is right for this relationship, but you say that it's wrong. It's very confusing. um and then of course you have them talking about them banging, and creating earthquakes. But when again Lois having the powers, at first when the cover was shown, they thought that Lois was a future daughter. And then when Williamson confirmed that it was Lois, 5 seconds later, they was like, "Oh, she has powers. They can bang." That was kind of
Yeah, that's
it was very
literally
weird.
that's literally the progression of the conversation.
Yeah, within 5 seconds, they were talking about that, and it was very very weird. Um, so yeah, again, this relationship, it really it has its flaws, and again, we've talked about it that yeah, it was we needed a little bit more uh, development at the beginning. But it could have easily been fixed with if the book would have continued on with showing flashbacks of them working together throughout the 5 year skip, and showing them, really becoming friends and best friends and everything, and getting closer by, just things like that. And with the whole thing about fanboy porn from Jerkins, um, I mean, like I said, with Tony and Yannick saying that Clark and Diana's relationship is too risque and sexy, we can see like even with simple covers, like Wonder Woman 141, that is that is supposed to be like, especially with the yellow roses, that represents friendship. But you see Clark and Diana in a very intimate type pose, but their facial expressions are of longing and this sort of bittersweetness. So it's a complication of their relationship. And but it gives off this romantic vibe, you know. Then you have Wonder Woman 800, where
Hang on,
they
right there.
where yeah, that bottom panel. This is where Jen Bertel, she only posted that panel, and it just blew up to, you know, some fans loving it, hating it. It's very much a 50-50 thing with Clark and Diana's relationship. It's really no in between. You can love it or hate it, and people still are going to talk about it. They are going to be engaged. Just that one simple panel though got so much reaction, and even though it has them as friends, it still gives very much friends with benefits
Mm-hmm.
or that underlying tension, and it's so effortless. And artists, honestly, they see the potential and the just that, like I said, that effortlessness of drawing them together, and you can feel that natural tension that they have as characters. And then there's also this thing where fans don't like it when Diana calls him Cal. And honestly, it's very weird to me because his birth name is Cal. She's honoring his not only she's honoring just Krypton as a whole, being a dead planet and dead culture, but I would say that she's honoring even Laura, because Laura is the one who names him Cal. And Diana is all about mothers and women. And if we were to, honestly, I would say, to have a story where Diana learns of Laura, that will give her even more of a reason to call him Cal. And again, it is a reminder for him to honor who he is. So to have a problem with her calling him by his birth name and saying, calling him that takes him away from humanity, very childish. It does not make sense.
No, it does not, when it was the complete opposite. And it's like, it's because you get stories like Injustice that really like that I would say are majorly responsible for the way that like conception of SuperWonder has come from, because it's like they've oversimplified Injustice to, if Lois just dies, he automatically loses connection to humanity. That's the thing. Even Grant Morrison brought this up, where they were like, yeah, I've lost people close to me. I didn't turn into a dictator.
Right. It's very, I don't know, it's basically, if they can't justify Lois as an individual character, especially with even her being a solo character, we see she can't be marketed and she can't hold a book. So,
Mm-hmm.
her only relevance is being the wife love interest of Superman. So, what's her justification? Oh, that this most powerful man, obviously, he needs to be handheld, or he needs to be coddled. He needs to be have Lois as like a third mother figure for him and have him on a leash for him to act right or something like that. Very, very um
Problematic.
yeah, definitely. There's also
But about real quick, I want to bring this up. Enzo says, I like how New 52 Wonder Woman gave Supergirl her sword, and Supergirl approved of them as a couple. Yeah, I love that. And,
yeah.
she didn't just do that. She kissed Superman, and then Kara's like, I like her. And then, of course, Clark's like, me too.
Yeah, that I honestly wish we would have had more moments. That's the thing. These characters, as they weren't edgy, they were just filled with a they
Realism.
exactly. And they are going to have hardships. You do have the whimsical type elements in there, but this was supposed to be modern day realism. And honestly, the way the post crisis type status quo that is currently going on, how sales are now, yeah, I mean, a lot of the fans complained about New 52. Well, I would say a minority because sales said otherwise.
Yeah, it's
Um,
obviously a minority. How's that going for you, DC?
but you complained about New 52. DC caved and they gave, you know, what they wanted, and they don't give the support. And it's kind of like, you only again wanted that comfort, or you wanted to have that control, but to not support what you supposedly was fighting for, or whatever, it just really gives such a childish mentality. And especially when some of these fans are of very adult age, it's kind of like you have to grow up at some point. And for these some of these writers to be comfortable to say, oh, I want this character to, be written the way I grew up, how the way they were when I grew up, or I'm going to write them that way of how I grew up, and not give new fans a chance to grow up with a certain version for themselves. I think that really takes away a lot.
It's
Um,
selfish. It really is
Very
selfish.
selfish.
So
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, so going back to one of the panels that you had, the the previous one.
Yeah, hang on. Here we go.
So the second image in the orange box, it basically sums up why Clark um fell in love with Diana. And it is he basically says he doesn't have to, be careful around her. He doesn't have to hold himself back. She lets him be his best self. She wants him to be nothing but his best self. And it's also acknowledged that both of them are something new to the world, to Earth. That again, it goes back to Clark being a refugee, Diana is an immigrant, but it's more complex than that because Clark is an immigrant or a refugee from a total different planet. Yes, Kara is also a refugee, but she
He's in the unique position that he's a refugee that up until he was like a teenager didn't know he was a refugee.
exactly, and the powers and how that a sense of loneliness. So he has to learn of his culture, and also the unique thing of Cal, the way he was born. That of 1,000 years, he was the first natural born for Krypton. So he is basically the purest Kryptonian in a sense. Yes, you have the science way of um having the children, the Kryptonian children, but for him to be a natural born, like Lara, being pregnant, that was something so unique and special, on Krypton. And then Diana, she being an immigrant, she chose to leave Themyscira because she felt that she had a different path, and she wanted to do something more. She wanted to explore, but she grew, her birth of being crafted by clay, breathed life into by the gods, and she was the only child of the island. That's what makes her unique, and she has to learn of being she embraces her culture, but now she has to learn as an adult a new culture, and it's a multicultural thing. The Amazons are, and that's what I love too, is that if the Amazons were multicultural, but it's even more so when she's learning it from the modern day and how um, men have changed or not changed, and being that voice for women and children. And Clark is the voice, well, she's a voice for all of the oppressed, but also being the the voice, but Clark being the voice for the oppressed as well.
Yeah, exactly. So then let's continue on. So then we have the narrative power here because again, this is the point that I always bring about why I like this pairing, and Liam, this is what SuperWonder actually is, because what it's essentially about is the ultimate expression of equality, because you have the strongest man and the strongest woman. Hang on, I'm not talking I'm starting this framing powers, but it's not about their powers, but it's the idea that you have the strongest man and the strongest woman, but their relationship is not at all about power. Neither one tries to dominate the other. It's more about let's just be people together. And plus, let's be honest, it's the ultimate form of gender equality when you have these you have arguably the two most equal characters in all of DC together.
Also, their strength, their physical strength, it we see peeling all of that back. You go, you see the vulnerableness of these two, that their hearts though are strong, but they're so, I wouldn't say fragile, but it's just so innocent. They have this very this pure innocence, as strong as they are physically. And that is something that again, a lot of writers forget and just or they simplify it to be that they are so naive, and again they need to be handheld or they will fall off the rails at some point. But these two have such the innocence and vulnerability and just these um hearts of gold to help. They're not helping or using their gifts for because of any romantic, relationships, even together. Because in Superman and Wonder Woman 11, the quote that you always bring up, Jared, about Diana saying that, the world comes first. And that's something that they never had to discuss. It's just something that they already, know together. And if they mess that up, if the world, then their relationship doesn't exist. And that honestly is very powerful because that shows how these two are so selfless, and they bring basically that selflessness together to be the inspirational and um and yeah, most most sacrificial heroes there are.
Yeah, exactly. So then, speaking of sacrifice, so then they just killed him off. And the thing is, first you got the people that were like, it's not Superman. Then you got like the editorial interference. Then you got people like Tomasi and the readers themselves that were like, that's not Superman. But the issue is, again, this is why I highly dislike a lot of the classic Superman writers, not as people, but as writers and professionals, because again, when you bash what a lot of people liked, even though it like went against like what you thought Superman should be, then I'm sorry, you are unprofessional and should not write in the arts. I'm sorry, because when you're writing the arts, you do technically have to go off of what other people like. And if you're not going to do that, I mean, it's demonstrable that this was the version of DC that sold well. It saved the freaking company.
Yeah, if Rebirth or Convergence would have, sold 20 times more or so than New 52, then first we wouldn't have this show, you know. Um
We still would. We would just have less of a leg
well,
to stand on. Well, remember, Brit, isn't it kind of funny? Actually, you know what? I lost my train of thought. Carry on.
it'll come back to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Um well, you're right. We would have the show and we wouldn't
Oh,
even be talking about the sales. Uh-huh.
I, I remember. Remember when they said that the Superman Lois and Clark book was going to outsell Superman Wonder Woman? How'd
Exactly.
that
Yeah,
work out for you?
yeah, they definitely were saying that it has to be Superman and Wonder Woman number one, which garnered over 100K. And um I remember, on the story on the message board, there was one fan, very conceited, very condescending. He was saying, "Oh, this is gonna sell like hotcakes, and this is going to prove that we want the status quo back, and the super marriage." And he, went to, this is on CBR, and CBR had the appreciation pages for couples. And he would, you know, feel like he had the right as an older fan to come on the Superman and Wonder Woman appreciation page and just, pour a lot of sugar honey iced and just he was just drinking it up basically. And it was very annoying, but he, you know, would say like just because they're merchandise of Superman and Wonder Woman, and especially with them being advertised together, still the power couple, and um, you see the T-shirts and any other type of merchandise, he would belittle that.
Which
And
which is hilarious because Brit, you know that a lot of these comic companies use the comics as IP farms, and what's kind of funny about it that these same people talk about that, but what they don't realize is okay. So here's the DC and Marvel will keep a character or iteration around for like so long because their merch sells. Um, so it's like if Lois's merch clearly, look this way, it's kind of funny how for couple stuff they do Superman and Wonder Woman and typically not Lois. I think they're trying to say something.
yeah, okay, we all know Lois is not a, she can't be marketed
Because
because
she's just a generic journalist.
it's not even generic. She's just a generic woman, period. I mean, she she just wears regular clothes, I mean, even with Tom King doing the costume switch for Batcat and Chloe for the with the Batman issue, Lois had on a very tacky flower flower dress. How is that a costume? I,
Mm-hmm.
her basically her costume, if you, even with Halloween, you see a lot of couples dressed as Superman and Wonder Woman. And when couples are dressed as Chloe, she's basically a gender bent Clark because she has the black, is some that has like a black pencil skirt or black pants, the white button down shirt, and some of them will have the Superman shirt or just the white collar shirt, but they will have on glasses. And then it's just the, handmade, homemade press badge. And it's kind of like, okay, if you didn't have the press badge and you have a Superman shirt underneath, or just the pencil skirt or pants and white shirt with glasses, you're very much just gender bent Clark. So Lois does not have a defining look. Even with trying to have her in purple, I mean, they showed the merch for the new Superman movie, and even Lex has on purple. So,
Purple is not is not a exclusive Lois thing, and it's like, what's kind of funny. Even when I go to Comic Cons, I never see a Lois Lane cosplayer because because all it is just, yeah. To your point, it's the only reason why I would know if it was if it was Lois is if she wore a badge that says Lois Lane, and I'm like, it's because she doesn't do anything, and I'm like, making her Superwoman is not going to work, and I'm just like, stop it.
right, I mean, even still, she looks like a gender bent Clark, or she looks like a future daughter, as some fans thought, or just a generic Supergirl, Superwoman. Um, there was even a variant cover that they basically showed them kissing, and of course the general fans commented thinking that they were cousins. because they don't know that, oh, Lois, first, obviously, they're not reading the comics and know that Lois has powers. But it's the fact that that imagery, it just looks like kissing cousins. It doesn't really look like, um, as I said, Lois doesn't
Don't
have
tell
a
John Byrne.
define right. Lois doesn't have a defining look, even from her hair. In post crisis, I think Jurgens, she had auburn hair, like trying to be like a redhead, or then she had they switched from her to have long black hair or a bob. So she doesn't even have a consistent hairstyle either. Um so yeah, there's no way you can market Lois, and even on a T-shirt, I've seen them have Lois Lane on a T-shirt. Why would you want to have LL on your T-shirt? That's like
Well,
you're basically
I would want to have that if I could swap out the N for an M.
there.
I'm just saying that may be a comics league t-shirt in the near future.
But well, yeah, I mean, is honestly loser, lame loser.
Or
People.
Zois.
Yeah, Lois. Even we've had engagement rings with Clark and Diana's well, Superman and Wonder Woman logos. How can you're gonna have L as a logo, you know, so it's basically just an L. There's there's ways to this. And even if you want to go with the marketing and symbols, like Batcat, uh you have bat, for Batman. So, and then you have the cat for Catwoman. And that is something that a lot of, um, for the marketing merch for Batcat, that's what they use. For Superman and Wonder Woman, their logos obviously is going to be the letters of the S and the W. But, you know, uh, and the S shield and the W, how Wonder Woman's um double W's are. That is something that works, and recognizable. But just having a regular L is not going to work. With having a woman who you can't really tell who she is, because she doesn't have a defining look, she just looks like a random woman on. She would look like a random woman on t-shirts, and you wouldn't want that. Um, yeah, so it's a lot of setbacks basically for Lois as a character individually and her relationship with Clark. The also just the storylines are stale because they don't have anything else new for her. Giving her powers is and not really doing anything with it. Even again, Williamson, they he wanted this scene where Clark talks about the future and how he is scared and basically having PTSD about Doomsday. But Lois's only response that he wrote for her was, "Oh, that's dark." But if it was Diana, of course, we see how Charles Sewell, he
Yep.
knows how to write those types of conversations for them
Was
because
just
they
about to bring
understand.
that up when she puts her hand on his chest and goes, "Whatever the future holds, we will face it together."
Exactly. That they have, even in post crisis, when they weren't even a couple, Clark and Diana would have those, you know, very intimate, in a sense, conversations. But you don't have that with Lois. Sometimes they would try to have those kinds of conversations, but it's mostly her. She's she's a sounding board, but also like she's not giving Clark that the the feedback or the response that Diana gives to understand the situation and also challenging him. Lois mostly just she's coddling him when they try to have them talk, and it ends up where um it's basically like a cheerleader mentality for Lois,
Hmm.
and coddling him, that he's right about things, or um we saw even in Our Worlds at War how she didn't understand the importance of, she wanted to have her husband, but the world needed Superman. There's certain points in that makes Clark even selfish. Or again, when they do try to have those conversations, it's very superficial. It's nothing in depth that Clark and Diana give to each other. When we see even um, for Wonder Woman 800, how Clark he says that he can't save the world of just helping everyone, and he says how the world needs to have suffering in some sense, or people don't know how to live basically. And Diana, she tells him that, yeah, there's at a point where we can't be everywhere, that being who you are and having certain flaws, that's what makes you Superman. So those certain things are far more profound than just doing these superficial, fluffy, romantic odes that just just basically, you know, you want the readers or the fans to accept this relationship just just because traditional reasonings, not because it actually gives a certain, profound development for the characters.
Exactly. So then we get to the forgotten Superman, and the thing about it is like again, it's like and it's basically summarizing what Brit and I have said before. It's like with this whole version of Superman, it's like, yeah, this guy was like the in many ways he's like the OG Superman when you think about it.
Yeah. One more thing about Final Days.
Yeah.
So I didn't like how Tomasi, at the end, he wanted to. Well, it was the whole thing, and it felt like a dangling carrot, or it felt like a um, just the whole transition was very mean spirited. Of
Tomasi mean
um,
spirited.
right. I mean, from the beginning, he was very mean spirited, but to say that Clark wanted to marry Diana, and yeah, sure, of course, you know, but again, they weren't there just yet to say he's going to marry her or wants to marry her. That needed a little bit more development. If Charles Soule were to have written that, that would have felt way more genuine, because of issue 12. But for the way Tomasi did it, it definitely felt like a just a slapping that in there for for melodrama reasons. And also, but with Diana, that was also natural for her, but also not, because she, with saying that, well, it was natural because with the way Meredith wrote it, that Diana saying that a family, marriage and children, that idea she thought was impossible. But with Clark, it was possible for her. And yeah, that made sense because of Justice League 14, of Clark letting Diana know that she can have a life outside of being Wonder Woman. So that made sense for that. But again, it still felt like it was slapped on just to say that, well, we're going to break them up. So whatever could have been with them thinking about marriage or something like that, we're going to take it away from you anyway. Um, and that ending where Clark says, "What a lucky man I am," and Diana acknowledges saying that, all your parents are waiting for you. Again, at the very end, Diana honors both sides of who he is. She always says that you are not just Superman, but you are Clark and Kal. That is something, again, Lois does not do. It's only just Superman and Clark, but it's never Kal. Kal is never brought up. Um, and again, that strips away his complexity. But yeah, with the whole marriage thing of New 52, I would say that I honestly would have felt better if they didn't put that in, because it just felt like it was slapped on and a slap in the face, because at at that point, Tomasi knew that they would bring um the marriage with Lois back and John.
That they bring
So
coward Superman.
yeah, coward Superman. And then with Diana being with Steve, again, it was very mean spirited all the way around.
Yeah, mean spirit. That basically just describes all of DC Rebirth, except of course
Yeah.
if you're a Green Lantern fan. It was mean spirit in terms of Batman because of who they put on the Batman. Anyway, so yeah, like we said before, he's basically the Golden Age, and I love this image. DCYOU was a crapshoot, but this one moment where like Superman is like protecting people, and it's like he's depowered and he still has like he goes back to t-shirt and jeans. I'm sorry, this is an iconic picture of Superman right here.
Not because he is for the people. And this was the height of police brutality.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how, again, you reference real world events, and it matters, and you also show the consequences of it. So, this is the type of storytelling that you want. The way DC tried to do with John, and have him like, uh, Taylor is so focused on him being the bisexual Superman, or him. He didn't even fight climate change, but I guess it's because of the cover. It was a climate change type protest or whatever, but it never happened in story. Um, and but he wasn't the 21st century Superman of actually doing something. He Taylor also had it where John is basically saying that Clark, he didn't do enough. Like Superman, Clark has been Superman. Well, for John and his whole continuity mess up, um, apparently Clark age is 36, which doesn't make sense because aged up John is 20. So
Quickly
a
he's
30,
aged up. It's not like time for Clark has passed though.
yeah, so but even Clark being 36 doesn't make sense, because you introduce a 10-year-old. So you're basically saying that Clark, you have Death of Superman when he's like what, 20 something, early 20s. Um, but John is supposed to be 10 years old. So he was born when Clark was 26. That's way too early. That means Clark was only Superman for like 4 years before getting married, dying, and then having John. That's way too much too fast. Um,
By real quick, I want to make sure I talk about super chat $5. Thank you. I think they still think like conservatives, even progressive. They're still conservative to a degree, but it's like, see, here's the thing. I've long said the way that they should handle politics is is any of the superheroes shouldn't align with any political party, because ultimately you're protecting both or all political parties because you're protecting the world. So you shouldn't have superheroes saying, "Oh, I'm a liberal, I'm a conservative." No, you shouldn't say anything about that.
Right. It's not like, again, how Rebirth definitely showed the political side that it wasn't aligned with, especially with Superman, and just the way that was handled. But you also had in the Trinity book how using Clark and Diana being the perceived as the outsiders, foreigners, immigrants, to protect a um I believe it was he was definitely a bigot, but he was a hate speaker, a
Hmm.
bigoted hate speaker. And I'm kind of like, what like made DC want that type of story? Why would you have Clark and Diana protect that if hate speakers, bigots, you know, obvious oppressors, why would they be willing to protect that? And it basically, in a sense, that was giving that Clark and Diana had to conform and align themselves with oppression, um, and to basically justify, who they were and be accepted. And that goes with the same thing of their relationship with Steve and Lois. Steve, he's this military guy, and he's this generic American military guy. So Diana, being the foreign woman, she has to be attached to to him in that sense. Even though Perez has showed that 30 plus years she didn't need Steve, or even when he died, she didn't need him. Um, but Rebirth and DCEU, specifically Wonder Woman 1984, um, has warped the perception that Diana is obsessed or needs Steve as a love interest for her to um, not only be Wonder Woman, but also know what love is. And Tom King is trying to force that warped narrative on her too.
Oh, trust me,
Then,
the Tom King's whole perception of Diana is very warped.
yes. And then with Superman, again, you have the coward Superman. You have him where, again, he only named his son uh, John Samuel. First of all, you name him after Sam Lane, who hated him in
Hmm.
Post Crisis. And Sam
Extremely
Lane,
xenophobic.
exactly. And to name Samuel just because it's human names, is making you feel human. Again, that is veiled xenophobia and self-hatred, self-resentment that Superman should never have. Um, and just that whole where Tomasi uh has the American flag in every panel or in every book of
Cover.
his and cover. Um, and it
How
was
about that
very
one cover where it's John, Superman, and Lois, and they're doing the like Revolutionary War march, like painting.
that, and the trade cover
Hmm.
where they have the flag, and yeah, it's very, it gives off very conservative in that restrictive, problematic vibe.
Hmm.
Yes, you have the American way, and we've talked about that, but it's the view of it, and what it they've warped it in a very problematic way, and that is what Rebirth Superman represented. Um, and the American glorification history lesson that Tomasi did as well in the book.
And
It
Tom King.
and Tonkin. It really showed how their perception of Superman is that he is supposed to be this American poster boy and glorify the problematic ways of America. And he is supposed to conform instead of fighting against those problematic ways, he is supposed to conform to them to be accepted. And that's just not what Superman was created to be. And they these writers talk about Jerry and Joe Superman's creators all the time and how they want to honor them, but they don't. They only honor the 1986 version of Superman, and even the Donner
which was
version.
created by someone that wanted to get him away from his immigrant like roots. So I'm like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, and even the Donner version of Superman, it that takes away so much too, because in the second movie, what does he do? He gives up his powers so he can be
And
with
somehow he
Lois.
and Lois, without their powers, walk from Antarctica to like middle America.
That's where the whimsical stuff comes from, and it's just kind of like you got to turn off, your brain as a whole or half of it to just let it go. Yeah, but yeah, if Clark has to give up who he is, his heritage to fit in and be with Lois, that's just not a relationship that should be pushed if he has to choose one over the other. W-
Exactly.
and mostly it is choosing to disregard his Kryptonian heritage. And that's just something, again, in real life, people yearn for their culture. When that's taken away, that is, you are taking away a part of who you are. And some people, it hurts them, and in history, so many people of color, um, and um, of different cultures have fought for those rights to honor their culture and have that right to embrace who they are. So for these characters, they were created to be a personification of that in a sense. And for you to write them as the opposite of disregarding that of their culture, yeah, you're not doing right by these
Oh,
characters
oh,
and
oh,
or nor their
but Brit,
creators.
remember, according to John Byrne, these people are ungrateful.
I mean, I don't understand how loving who you are, loving your culture, loving
You can still
who
love
you come.
America, but also loving where you came from. That's a problem.
Yeah, that again, that is very a problematic mindset of basically the oppression, oppressors in a sense being in control of people. That is what that is. You are conforming to oppression. And again, having the champion of the oppressed bow down to the oppressors, that is so backwards thinking. And they want to glorify that. And make it seem like that's okay. Uh we've seen even a few leaks of the newest of the movie, and how that's going to go about with how the the synopsis of the movie is Clark. um he has to balance, you know, his Smallville upbringing and his Kryptonian heritage. But with the leaks, and you can, anyone can go, search it if they want. But with that, the way it's handled, it doesn't really sound very, it sounds mishandled in a sense. And you have this where, again, we have that problem of choosing one over the other instead of actually having that balance.
Yeah, exactly. So then you get to a vision for the future with this character. So what you have here is the thing about it is here's where the character could have gone if he had been allowed to endure and like actually like given a legitimate chance, because that's the other thing, he wasn't given a legitimate chance to even like exist, if you will. So you get to the Clark Kent persona. So let's start with that. Is the idea that like they finally found a way to modernize Clark being a reporter, because Clark being a reporter is not the problem. It's the way they do it. Because what you could do is, because here's the thing, a lot of these classical news agencies are struggling because people are getting their news from YouTube channels and like internet bloggers. So how's a way that we can modernize that part of Clark Kent? Oh, wait, internet blogger. It also makes more sense because if he needs to fly somewhere on a reporting trip, he literally can just fly there.
Yeah, it would having Clark, it was okay to see him like on a plane, to have those type of um I guess he would do those normal type things sometimes. And even I've written that where he got on a plane. But at the same time, yeah, after a while, he would fly. He would fly, to different areas and be a freelance reporter or a global correspondent. Especially in the modern day, because he doesn't need to be stagnant and stuck with Metropolis and the Daily Planet. It just feels like it's not like Gotham with Batman. Even though Batman is a street level, he's supposed to be a street level character. Gotham still feels as dark and dreary as it is larger than life, and it's a
I know.
and it's also a city that's a character of its own. And Metropolis is supposed to be the city of tomorrow, but it feels like it's still stuck in the early 90s, 80s in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. Um, and that is just something that if you're going to have Metropolis like that, then yes, let Superman um broaden, his where he is to be. And that's another thing, even with Diana. She It's a pro and a con to it that she doesn't have a like home city. It would be Boston, with Julie and Vanessa, um, or just Boston, period. But they don't, or Gateway, city. They don't really establish that much. But her not having just an established city makes it to where she is a traveler. And again, Clark and Diana are these global heroes that should just travel everywhere.
Mm-hmm. That works. So then you get to the heroes of the mythic age, and it's the idea that because here's the thing, New 52 Superman never really like identified with like any particular country. Like as far as I know, he didn't really go rah America. Like I'm sure he was at least grateful for the land in which he was raised, but it's more like he was already a global hero, so he could very much just roll with that. Plus, it's kind of funny. This is it's maybe an idea, by the way, Brit, but Diana is so on the Diana side. But we should do a follow-up episode to this on New 52 Wonder Woman at one point. But anyway, so what they could do is let's say they bring back the embassy part, and Diana comes home one day and she goes, "Okay, Cal, I need a favor." And he goes, "Okay, what is it?" And she goes, "Okay, so I'm trying to negotiate this treaty, and the the person I'm negotiating with is a big Superman fan." So, and then Clark goes, "Oh, so you want me to show up and butter them up?" And then Diana says, "Well, when you say it like that, it sounds so dirty."
You really want to put the oh no, actually, I don't think you caught that, but I did have the part where I said that New 52 Superman does get his hands dirty.
I didn't catch that.
It's an earlier
Oh my god.
earlier earlier slides, but yeah, I was like, I know.
Wait. Where is that? I
This
need to
is
see
the
this.
first. Let me see. Let me see.
The hands dirty. Don't wait, people. I'll explain why this is funny in a second.
Go, continue on. I think it's let's see. Um, let's see. Maybe one more. Hmm, one more, maybe.
It'd have to be this one.
Oh yeah, at the bottom.
Ha! All right. That's so good. Great job, Brett. I didn't notice that. All right. Here's why that's funny, ladies and gentlemen. So in Clunrad's Wonder Woman run, and again, the Clunrad, Michael Conrad, by the way, may be coming on the channel soon. So hell yeah. But this is the guy. So he says he liked to keep like Clark and Diana's like mutual attraction ambiguous. Okay, here's this man's definition of ambiguity. No problem, by the way. I love the guy's writing, but it's like so there's a scene. So I believe the Watchtower is experiencing a power outage. Clark, Diana, and Bruce are on the Watchtower, and so all right. Oh my gosh, I love this line. So they're crawling through air vents, and then Clark says, "Why do we have to crawl through air vents? I could have flown to the other side and opened the door." And then Clark goes, and then Bruce goes, "Afraid of getting your hands dirty." And then Diana literally says, "I assure you, Clark knows a thing or two about getting his hands dirty." And I'm like, God damn it! I'm like, on what planet is that ambiguous? It's the "I assure you" part that really like makes it funny.
It does. And honestly, that was also why would I would be interested in Conrad to write um Clark and Diana, if he were to write them as friends with ambiguity or
ambiguity.
But the fact that he with that issue, Clark, he goes, spouting out like this scientific talk, and Diana is like, "Oh, so you talk like this, but you're just a boy from the country or something. You're just from Kansas." But it really just acknowledges that Clark can say, "Oh, I'm just a guy from Kansas, a simple guy," but it's natural that he has, of course, super intelligence. And that's also something that we don't see is that Clark, showing off that he has that scientific mindset from his father. So yeah, Conrad, I would definitely be interested in him writing Clark because I think he can give us not so much as New 52 in that sense of the scrappiness or that but I think he can try and he can probably give us a little bit to where it's reminiscent to this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have references of Diana saying that he can get his hands dirty a couple of times.
Oh my gosh. I would love if there was a scene where Clark is like working on the truck and he gets grease on his hands and Diana just winks at him. Trust me. If I wrote Superman and Wonder Woman in a book, it would 100%. I would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm being ambiguous. Although I would have her like I would have so they're having a conversation, and then Crypto basically jumps up on Diana's back and basically pushes her into Clark. And yeah, and I'm saying, oh, you mean a Crypto? That's Superman's wing dog.
That is
And then
perfect.
Clark so Diana leaves, and then Clark whispers, "Good boy." Anyway, embracing his crypto, because this is the other part that really makes this work, and why I love this version of the character. Because yes, he embraced being human because that's part of what he is, but he also very much embraced being a Kryptonian, and that's like with the suit, with the fortress, with everything they try to do, and that's also with like Diana, because here's the thing, and that's one of the things in Charles Sewell's Superman Wonder Woman book, that was a source of contention between the two. I mean, it's not really like hatred contention, but it's like a sensitive point here, because Diana's all about being and by the way, Omen says Snyder's Man of Steel is what made me love Superman. You are among friends, my friend. 110% Snyder's Superman made me really get this. So yeah, you found your place, my good friend. Anyway, so the point of contention between Clark and Diana was like, Diana's all about openness, because Diana really didn't even have a secret identity in the new 52, if I remember correctly. But
Right.
it's like she see, here's the thing, here's the good back and forth, because every relationship needs a good give and take. It's like he taught her how to embrace life outside of wearing the costume, and she helped him like embrace more of who he is. And that's the hallmark of a good relationship, when they both like give something that the other can't have. I mean, hell, for Christmas she gave him just a day off.
Right. Like that's all that's their relationship is complex, but it's very simple or easy to write. It's not an easy relationship as Rucka tried to make it seem. It's not, and it's not just about powers. It's not being a power couple in the physical sense. It's very much an emotional, intellectual, and even spiritual type, connection that they have, and and challenge that they bring to each other. And yeah, like you said, Diana, she is very open. It's basically how their relationship should be. Is very much like a celebrity type relationship, or Roman holiday, you know, of the princess. And what's so crazy is that it is a story of a princess, and she meets a reporter, and they, have an adventure out in Paris. That
We talked about this, right?
yes, we
Yeah,
did.
I remember.
And it's like she gave him this thrill, even if it was to be temporary, it was this thrill to just, be free for a moment. And then he gave her this sense of privacy. And that is what Clark and Diana give each other. Diana gives Clark this thrill that he needs. He needs to be open, he needs to be free. They are basically like caged birds. If you can, why be grounded when you have the ability to fly? I mean, the Superman um, tagline for the movie is "Look up," meaning um, him flying basically, and Superman is in the sky, but you want him to be grounded, and grounded does not mean humble. There's two different things. With Clark, his humbleness comes from the kindness and the compassion and the understanding that he gives to the people that he wants to help. Diana's too. But grounding, it just makes it seem like you want them limited, and you want them um, basically put on a leash by Lois and or Steve. And that is no, that is not how you write a relationship where you have these two, or just in general, people. You want, the significant other to control that person, or to be like this very problematic and codependent emotional crutch. That isn't that's very dysfunctional, and that's not a healthy relationship.
Exactly. So then we get to the culmination, and it's and I really enjoyed reading this one, Brit, because it's like the Clark basically in like this culmination story that Brit has proposed. It's he the at the culmination of this journey, Clark like opens the Fortress of Solitude as kind of like, the way I took it, it's kind of like a place where it's essentially like a UN of scientists where people can come together and like share scientific knowledge
Exactly.
with Krypton. And I always felt that is so. Why haven't they done this?
Because DC doesn't, they want to demonize Krypton instead of embracing the good. I mean, that is why, you know, and that is what New 52 Superman, he basically, it was there, you know, for him. To set up that Diana, you know, tells him to share, you know, your world basically with your adoptive world. Bring it all together. And yeah, she understood that there are some dangers to that, but it's also the beauty of it too. And obviously, Jarrell, he if Cal went back in time and he went to see his um his Kryptonian parents multiple times. Obviously, if it's not journals that Jarrell had for Cal, even if going back in time and meeting them in a sense to know at least some hints of what to do and you know things uh, that will help guide him. But again, DC wants to demonize Krypton for some reason, and it's like it's you are just setting limitations the on what to be explored for Superman's world. And that is why again they are in this stagnant state that they're in because they aren't giving Superman's world truly the expo- exploration that and expansion that it needs.
Yes.
And
By the
by
way, you just gave me a massive idea.
I know I did.
Like, this is something big.
I know. Um and also even though again I would never give Tomasi flowers. Like, no. It's little moments here and there that he wrote for Clark and Diana,
He wrote good
and
moments. It's just the thing is, it's like you have a turd in your hand. There's going to be some gold in there, but it's few and far between. It's still a pile of poop.
exactly,
That's the
exactly.
most crude way I could describe this. That's the most accurate way I could describe this.
Yes, that is very accurate.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
with
Okay.
with that scene where um, New 52 Clark he creates a statue for the Kents, and he basically brought
Here, right
both
there.
worlds together, and he honored both of them equally. That is who Superman is. And the fact that Rebirth Superman said, "Oh, he has statues for both sets of parents," and he says, "I never thought of that." So
Ha!
honestly, how can you say that um Rebirth Superman and New 52 Superman were the same when they have total different mindsets? That this New 52 Superman was the Superman on his way to a far more balanced life, and especially obviously of course being with Diana because she knows how to balance life, while this Superman continues to struggle. He continues to pretend overly pretending his clumsiness, his not being truthful. And even if the New 52 world was a little bit darker, or if you want to say edgy and had more realism, it still felt like we were growing with these characters. And no, he doesn't have to grow into post crisis Superman. That's basically going backwards. That's not growing, that's regressing. Um,
Exactly.
but the way that he was supposed to go was just far superior than post crisis stagnation.
Exactly. So then you get to his love story with Diana. And by the way, at one point, if Britt and I were in charge of this, we would have mandated. Guess what? We're going to do a comic series. You may not have known it. We're going to get Charles Sewell back, and it's going to be called The Wedding of Superman and Wonder Woman.
And we'll have more flashbacks. And even if you want to, I mean, again, DC continuity is already messed up. So if we want to add some like post crisis moments and change it into New 52 as earlier moments, totally do
Yeah, you're stealing our crap, or we're stealing it right back.
that.
There you go. So tell us about the deeper love story.
So this again, it basically is a right at the end of issue 12, and where Clark and Diana still continue to challenge each other. And again, their relationship is very much like a celebrity relationship where you have the you have the public with the expectations, seeing Superman and Wonder Woman, and they have Clark and Diana, um, whether yes, she does adopt the Diana Prince um, identity, and she does become the ambassador that we know, ambassador and educator. I honestly prefer Diana to be a professor at a university, or to teach like literature or history.
Greek mythology.
Yes, exactly. For some reason, I just think that Diana being an educator, it just makes so much sense for her, and also being an ambassador, it just it just makes sense
It
for
would be
her.
hilarious. People are taking classes in Greek mythology by like, hey, Professor Prince, not knowing who it actually is.
Right. That would just be so much fun. But yeah, she has that um as their civilian jobs. Clark is still a global correspondent and doing his blogging. So, and I love that Charles will also put in that Diana, she's like his number one fan and she reads every post of his. I love that Diana basically has a notification that when Clark posts, she reads it like right there.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that is very um, little simple thing to have for them, and that they are just these global heroes, and learning of how to connect their worlds more together. It's obviously very seamless because mythology and the sci-fi, it can go together, you know, and especially the fact that I didn't put this in, but now I'm thinking about it, rewriting the Amazons to um, be more progressive in their scientific backgrounds, and uh, not just the warrior Amazons, more like they have, their, again, with the science and more advanced technology that they should have had. It's something like that. And again, become more multicultural. And Clark, of course, meeting Hippolyta, we definitely need him to have that mother and son-in-law type dynamic.
Oh hell
Um,
yeah!
and also the gods dealing with that, and of course having like round 2, 3, and 4 of Apollo trying to one up Clark. um
And
and
then
losing.
Clark goes, "Are you sure you want to go down this path again?"
Yeah, a fifth time. Yeah, so things like that, and just acknowledging again that these two outsiders are slowly but surely changing the world. Um, And also there will have, well, I think that's on the next slide of the other story potential.
Yeah. By the way, Brit, you forgot that this was. So I took when I was putting together the slide. There was one thing that you left out.
Oh my God, what did I do?
One of the children.
Yeah. Oh, right, Donna. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute here.
Right. Okay. So the story idea, of course, is again bringing back Ra or other Kryptonian gods. I just think that that is a story of, or the elders, like Kryptonian elders turn into gods or something like that. It would just be so much fun to see Kryptonian gods versus the Olympian gods. It would, and even just Clark and Diana, um, even just exploring other cultural gods like the African gods, the Celtic gods, just that whole thing, and the new gods, that um, traveling to other planets and dimensions and learning from that. Clark, I would say that even if you want to do truth and a public identity type arc as well, and change the status quo for that, obviously it needs more build up. It doesn't need the drama that, you know, that truth had, but it is something of showing how the world will react to that. How would the world see Professor Prince now that she's Wonder Woman and this world renowned global reporter Clark Kent is Superman? Give us just a better um, story for that, and that is something that can be actually inspirational than the what we got with truth. And then yeah, the potential of their children, how far have they come of changing the world perception of powerful children, if they're, you know if they are to bring their children into this world, is it safe for them? Are there going to be more villains? Um, if they do have a public identity, will the world accept their children?
Oh,
That is
by the
something.
way, Luffy has a question for you, Brett. This story sounds amazing. So where's the part where you kill Lois?
Oh my God.
I just love how every time we write a story of what the future is, everyone tells us, okay, how would you kill Lois? Killing
Okay.
Lois has got to be somewhere in there, right? You're goddamn right.
Okay. So here's my thing.
She trips and falls like in Justice Nightwing.
Hilarious. Okay, so here's my thing. So I honestly have it peeves me when detractors say that, oh, Clark and Diana can only be together like if Lois has passed away or something like that. So obviously within our story, Lois it's New 52, so it will continue on and Lois is alive and well. But I would go the Dark Knight Return Millerverse route and have Lois marry Jonathan Carroll, or just give her her own life that she um show her as an independent character. I'm
Or
not going to be.
just kill her with a disease. She's human.
Oh my God. See, that's worse than what
There's so
we're
many
trying
options here.
trying to be
Yeah, we're trying to be
at least a
civil,
little
and the audience is
civil.
like, nope.
No, don't even do that.
The audience is like practically like throw in a wood chipper.
Yeah. But
That's the hilarious part.
yeah, I mean, if we had to kill her off, then yeah, she would definitely just, I don't know, fall. I would honestly have her fall off a building or something. Like,
Mhm.
you
Trips
know,
and falls like in Justice Nightwing. That's what you do.
yeah.
And
Or
yeah, go ahead.
that Clark and Diana are together like throughout this whole thing, and she dies of old age, natural age. Or Lois is a smoker, so
Yeah, here you go, cancer.
I mean, it honestly would be. The thing
Or heart
is, it
attack.
would.
Wait, in this universe, Jonathan doesn't die from the heart attack. It's Lois.
Yeah, well, yeah. You honestly, I mean, she already has a cold heart and
Well,
a
here's
very
the
small
thing,
one.
Britt, that would require the character to have a heart to
Well,
attack her. So that's where a heart attack doesn't really work with Lois.
wow, this is trying to be civil, and it's just like not working at all.
It's the
Just a
people. It's
fail.
them. I have to appease my audience,
A
Britt.
complete fail.
I know, but
But if
so
we are to okay, so if we have Lois die, I would say again to not stoop so low, we would give her probably it would be the old age or a cancer story, but it would be something profound, and especially for again how common cancer is, whether it is for her to have, because she's a smoker, lung cancer or something, or as women, you have breast and I believe cervix,
mhm.
something that can still.
Or here's what you do. So you don't necessarily have to go straight like real thing. Have it like the power she has now are like destroying her, kind of like where she was Superwoman.
Oh, and it's like the radiation.
Yeah. Oh, Andrew Medley for $2 says, "Be better, guys." I'm like, it's their fault. What are you blaming me for?
That is hilarious. But yeah, it would be something still just to give her some type of respect or dignity.
Yes,
It
obviously we would.
yeah, it if you want her to have that sort of serious storyline though, it would be something like that. It wouldn't be that she died for the motivation or man pain for Clark. It would be just her again living her life and then she passes away as a friend. And yes, Clark would mourn her, but again, as a friend. And it would just be a very mutual thing. Um,
Exactly.
and
So,
it wouldn't be and
mhm.
it also yeah, again, we wouldn't be petty. We wouldn't be um like how Jurgens, Tomasi, and Rucka was when they killed off New 52 and or just felt any type of way to jab. The For me, in all seriousness, I would give Lois respect, even though I don't care for her character. Just again, we just don't do that. We
Well, what I
talk
would
about it.
do after we kill her, that's when we just forget the character existed.
Yeah, I mean, there's no point of bringing her up. She just, she was able to have her story, have her arc, her ending, and that's it. The focus is on Clark and Diana. That's the one thing that also is the total opposite of what the writers do, is that they bring up Diana, Lana. Maxima isn't anymore, but mainly Diana and Lana, of how they want to prop up Chloe and Lois, and it's like it's very unnecessary. We don't
Yeah,
do that. We are so focused on showing you how Clark and Diana's relationship worked just with Clark and Diana. They don't need to bring down other relationships or other characters to prop up their relationship. To me, if you have to do that, your relationship is on shaky ground.
I know. Speaking of shaky ground, Britt, it's time for our reviews. Actually, you know what? First, one last slide of goodness. So Clark becomes like essentially. Clark essentially, we could have it where, in the same way that Clark and Diana were represent balancing the two identities, Clark manages to, for lack of a better term, hear me out on this, Krypton lives again on Earth culturally, not necessarily like physically, like Zod
Right.
1 and Man of Steel. It's more of Krypton's knowledge and history and stuff is like preserved and shared with Earth.
Exactly. Exactly. And it even if I mean, because we saw Baka, I think
Hmm.
that's the how he had like basically a zoo, like a
Hmm.
extraterrestrial, space zoo, and with these intergalactic exotic animals, things like that can be shared with the world in a very, of course, be careful because like Clark, was written to tell Diana that it is danger to it because it is intergalactic and he has to know what it is. But to still know that there are vast worlds and it's not just Earth, have Earth be more open to other worlds, that is how you expand just DC in general. Yeah, they have a vast, um, a vast world, but it feels so small even now. The world, we see so many characters being drawn, um, but it just feels like the worlds are still so small with the same characters. It doesn't feel like anything is new being brought up. It doesn't feel like so much of an expansion as it should. Dan Mora was is said to be drawing like over 800 characters for the
Damn.
DC, uh I guess the history thing, but it's
Hmm.
kind of like, okay, so if you have over 800 characters, why do we only see,
Like
uh,
12.
yeah, like the same
Mostly
12,
bad
20?
characters.
Exactly. I mean, the Bat family itself takes up the first top 50 characters. So, we don't see any more. And honestly, the investment isn't there. So if you're gonna do that, we need to see that more of, and especially with Diana again being the ambassador and being the global, um, two global heroes. They need to be global and they need to be universal as well. I do want to see Diana take, being an ambassador and seeing her uh, basically stop wars on other planets. She should have been in War World with Clark.
Hmm.
Um, you know, things like that. We need more stories like that.
Exactly. And by the way, Coney Ainge says, I love the part of the slide that says a bond that doesn't tame them but sets them free. Man, that's what true love is. Free, self-fulfilling. Yeah, that's what Super
Yes,
Wonder actually is.
yes, it is. They are the very first image of the Superman and Wonder Woman book is them flying and with having the sun in the background and the clouds and stuff, they look like two
Here.
free birds. Yes, they look like two is yes, they look majestic and everything, but it just feels so free. And that is who they are. You know, that is something that, again, they aren't supposed to be grounded and limited. They are supposed to be these universal and, and these constants that are basically the world and the whole universe is unlimited for them.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, Britt.
Yeah.
I think it's time. It's time. All right. So another issue of Tom King's Wonder Woman came out, and spoiler alert. All right, so I'm gonna bring this up. I have a perfect clip to play for this. Hang on. Where is it? Where is it? Ah, here it is.
Batman doesn't do ships.
All right. So here's the thing. The Batman shows up in this issue, and of course, Tom King has to do this BS part where he has Zeus say there are men, there are gods, and there's Batman. And yes, Cameron, that is. I thought that maybe Brit was exaggerating when she put that in the chat. That he says that, but no, no. When I read this, I was like, oh god damn it, and I'm like, it's also, why is Hippolyta talking to a goat? That is the most, particularly when you have the disembodied head of the goat just standing there in the darkness. I'm like, that looks really beautiful. Plus, here's the thing also, when I was on Weird Science to talk about that, because apparently I'm the Wonder Woman correspondent there. I love you, Jim. But we were talking about that. Also, the problem with the 9-panel grid, and it's like, and this is mainly a problem with Marsh, is that if you notice, a few of the images are just of Diana's fist, her leg, her foot, stuff that we don't necessarily want to see in a superhero comic.
It is, first of all, Diana, she doesn't sweat like that.
Well, I'm like, what is she lifting?
And her lifting a weight is like, it was very pointless, and it doesn't fit Diana. Like, we've never seen her do that unless it's in like fan art or something, but she would have fun with it. This is very much like some muscle bound, like heartless warrior woman, and that I don't like. And then yeah, the goat thing, it gave very weird vibes of darkness and evilness. Um, Hippolyta's, I don't think her spirit animal is a goat. I believe it's an eagle.
Yeah.
So with having a goat is very,
But you really
and
think Tom King cares? That's the
and
thing.
also, where is Diana? Because why is she even somewhere where a goat is?
Maybe she's in Themyscira, but then again, where's
Okay, but
Trinity?
how does she has weights on the mascara?
Okay, here was my mistake. Assuming that the story had any semblance of logic.
Yeah.
That was my mistake. That's on me. All right, all right. Everyone has their lapses in judgment. But the other thing in this issue, Diana, apparently Tom King likes having Diana punch people, but it's like in this issue, she walks up to like the glass of wine, and then basically CIA enhance interrogates him, and I'm like, what? But it's like, again, it's like Diana punches her mom. She makes the Sovereign carve Liar into his skin. By the way, the same dagger that kills Ares is that dagger. And she also basically tortures gods.
Yeah, so the dagger. So Hippolyta says that she used to have it on her nightstand because apparently she was paranoid and just had it there for
And
protection.
Diana would play with it.
And Diana played with it. Why would you if Diana was so young, um, and probably didn't know any better, so she was probably a toddler, why would you have your toddler play with a dagger? And the way Hippolyta is so protective of Diana, she would not let her play with the dagger. No. Even if you want to say, even the 2017 movie when Diana was running around the mascara and she almost like fell off the cliff, and how Hippolyta was so, in a sense, panicky, you know, that is how protective she is of Diana. She does not want Diana to get hurt. So why would she just free, freely let her play with a dagger? That does not make sense for the character. And then the condescending nature of Diana with this conversation of, it just feels so cold, and how she answers Hippolyta in such a sarcastic manner of congratulations and stuff like that. That's just not their relationship. Diana and Hippolyta's relationship, even if it is strained, like it has been in post crisis, they still have so much love for each other. I didn't like when bloodlines had Hippolyta and Diana fight for for Diana to help, you know, Steve get off the island, and basically she was banished from never going back and stuff like that. That is just not their relationship. Um and even New 52, as much as fans want to rag on that, Hippolyta still loved Diana and she wanted to protect her. Diana, she longed for her to have her mother back. But and Conrad again, um, and some writers did show during Rebirth of how Diana loved her mother. So for King to make this so like just cold hearted, he does not know how to write mother daughter, mother son, just mother relationships. Period.
Well, he does. So something tells me that he's acting out some weird,
Yeah, he has
because
PTSD.
guess what? Well, if that's true, what does that say about his home life? If like Diana's punching her mother, particularly when he says that like his kid helps him write all of his comics, and I'm like, does your kid hate her mother?
Right. This yeah, his um
You
the
notice
way
that whenever
Tom
King gets controversial pushback, he always pushes it onto other people.
Yes, yes, he does. He does point fingers, and it's if it's successful, he will definitely um make it about himself. And if it's
Like, remember when he said, yeah, also that's the other thing. Diana Hippolyta is a weird party girl on Olympus, and I'm like, ugh. The more I
right,
read this, the more I cannot. By the way, so the book standing is now an eight. Last month's book was in the 82nd place, because if 3 to 5 issues of this keep dropping by that much, from like say 45 to 82, that's it. He's done. He will not survive, because DC is building toward a big like cross line like event in September in the fall or something like that. And likely, if his sales keep dropping, they're going to be shuffling around a lot of other creators, and he will not survive this like he survived All In, which he shouldn't have
mm,
survived anyway.
right. Um, yeah, the I was definitely surprised at the drop that a lot of these books have had, and
Yeah.
again, it's only because they didn't have any other option.
Hmm.
And here's the thing, and I brought this up last week and I think the week before that, but this is why New 52 couldn't be a separate line. Because first, DC did not have the time, they were pressured, so they had to do a full on reboot. Well, it wasn't full on, but you get what I'm saying. Um, and the way post crisis uh, sales were at that time, they couldn't have two lines together. And especially when one is already struggling, and it's going to struggle more because of that other line. And Absolute is showing just that. You have this post crisis uh, type continuity for your main line right now. On and then on the other side, you have Absolute. The fans obviously are gravitating more to Absolute. And so your main line is just free falling. And this explains why New 52, basically replaced uh, Post Crisis. And for some reason, it's still kind of like it's not clicking with fans of why you can't have two different lines. You can't have it, you couldn't have had it separated. And yeah, with this free fall of the main line right now, with it being that the main line is out of the top 50, they're not even in 60, 70. They're basically free falling to close out of the top 100. That is like really showing how the patience and the investment of the fans is just not there for them, and they really have to change. And um with these with writers like Tom King, who doesn't care for the character, he just cares for the plot that he's trying to push. Yeah, that's not working.
Yeah, exactly. And guess what? Yeah, I get the feeling. Here's the thing: the way I kind of see this going, because his run is gonna end sooner rather than later, I'm sure. And I think that Tom King's Wonder Woman run is gonna be forgotten. It'll either be forgotten or it'll be like, remember when Tom King wrote Wonder Woman, and then that'll be the only time anyone ever talks about it.
Yeah, it and honestly, the only time, honestly, I would say that this week, this issue, people did not want to talk about it
Mm-hmm.
for when it released, but kind of like later on in the day, evening type, that is when people started talking about it, and of course, negatively. And then the next day, though, that is when the reviews and everything and the talk started happening, because now it's time to not give the book attention. So out of curiosity, I guess, and out of hate buying, like that attempt of hate buying, people just don't talk about it. And that just shows how his book isn't resonating with a lot of people when just no one talk about it, whether it is to act like it's positive, that you have some Tom King fans that want to prop up anything he writes, or Batman fans that were trolling Wonder Woman fans, you know, or in that that this of course is a positive prop up for Batman, or negatively, as we would have something to say. It's
Yeah.
just don't give the book attention and you will see it fall more, because again, that is how forgettable it is, and the investment isn't there.
Just
Um,
boycott the book. Do not buy it,
yes.
and do not talk about it except to talk about how crappy it is. And if you use it, use the hashtags. Now, I bear in mind, do not attack King or anyone associated with the book. Do not, under any circumstances, do that. I've seen some people do it. Do not call him a war criminal or anything like that, because all that's going to do is going to make us look toxic. Attack the book, not the writer, because Lord knows, even as it goes on, there's so much more to blast, like how Aphrodite is basically worshiping Batman, and Bruce doesn't believe in gods. Okay, wait a minute. You visited gods.
Okay. So, real quick, going back to Diana being really violent. Okay. So, honestly, again, it feels like King wants to, the way he wants to connect Bruce and Diana. It First of all, it was the dead parent thing. And second, it was like to make Diana this dark femme fatale type character. And so she has to be brutal, and she has to be the bad cop, and just make her world dark. And that's what the art kind of gives. It gives that it fits Batman's world, not so much as Wonder Woman's world, even though this is Olympus. Um and yeah, with her being violent, I saw someone trying to justify it to say that, well, Ares is dead, so Diana is the god of war again. And so that's why
No.
she's so
Well,
aggressive and
if that
violent.
is, even when she was the god of war, she wasn't that aggressive.
Exactly. So that is very much just trying to jump the shark, justifying what King is doing. But also, it's already said that Ares isn't dead. If he was dead, he would have gone with Hades, and he's not there. So it's something else. So honestly, it's already a setup to what to that this is very stupid. And also, gods don't die. And given
Yeah.
that this is just like a regular dagger, that is so dumb to think that Ares can die of just a regular dagger. Mm, like what?
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, with the Batman inclusion, honestly, it's no point. It's very contrived. He just does not fit into Wonder Woman's world. You have to prop him up as the Bat God for him to fit.
There's
And
any number of Wonder Woman characters or her herself that could have actually had this same story. But no, and my friend Robert brought up that he thinks they included one Batman to try and boost the sales. But I'm like, let's take that as true. Let I mean, I don't think that's what it is, but let's assume that that's true. Yeah, but here's the problem: some series cannot be saved by that, and I argue that this is that because, like, oh my god, this series is utterly it's just collapsing like a dying star.
um another thing is that with Batman, okay, so even the Batman solo before Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee took over, it was barely making it.
Hmm.
It was falling. Then you've had other Batman books that were not bestsellers. I think it was Batman and the Outsiders and stuff like that. Um, Also, the last Batman and Wonder Woman team up, first of all, with um with King plagiarizing Joe Kelly, which in one scene he plagiarizes again. But with plagiarizing Immortal Beloved, he that um kind of ruined whatever type of uh dynamic he wanted to push with them anyway.
Hmm.
And and then Liam Sharp had Brave and the Bold, Batman and Wonder Woman Brave and the Bold, and that book did not sell.
Hmm.
Even though Liam Liam Sharp is a good artist, but to promote that book, and I mean, like, I'm not saying that Super Wonder fans are all innocent, you know.
Hmm.
There are some bad apples.
Yes.
However, I know for sure that Super Wonder fans do not go around attacking um, writers and artists for, you know, whatever they prefer. You know, they don't go seeking that.
Hmm.
Um, so for Liam Sharp to say that he was attacked by Super Wonder fans when it was Catwoman and Steve fans, it's kind of like, of course, you want to jump on that bandwagon
Why would Super
because,
Wonder fans attack when Superman played no part in that, and you are copying a story that fans hate?
yeah, and well, Liam Sharp, he was saying that he was being attacked for the Batman and Wonder Woman uh book by Super Wonder fans, and it was like, no, that was we know for sure that was Steve and Catwoman fans because the book announcement actually came right after Tom King's plagiarized issue. So, you know, Super Wonder fans were pretty much looking from a distance, basically eating popcorn, looking at the drama. So again, I feel like at that time, because Super Wonder was so like the target for the petty jabs and just to be blamed for so much, and especially because of his association with Rucka, who he actually drew the issue where Diana talks about her relationship with Clark, saying how it was easy and she doesn't understand love and romance and stuff like that, and needed Steve to teach her basically. So it felt like that is what Liam was um, grasping onto, was this hate train of SuperWonder, and he thought that, oh, if I hate SuperWonder, if I basically demonize or say SuperWonder is bullying me, the SuperWonder family is bullying me, then I will get more sales. Well, his book obviously it flopped. I don't think
Yeah,
that
because
it
no one gives a crap. Because I got news for you. No one honestly, I think DC should start learning that if Tom King's name is on a book, hmm,
right. And Liam, he complained on Twitter a lot about how his book was not getting sales. He asked, I believe it was Sean Murphy, when he was doing Batman White Knight,
mhm.
and his book actually sold, so Liam was saying how he wished that his book would sell as much as the White Knight did. He you know was really just going off on the sales and was thinking that his book would have been like a bestseller. And again, with going by Batman fans and Wonder Bat fans, there's only fans of the JLU versions, and but they don't really care for Wonder Woman. And that's the thing. Super Wonder fans, again, we're not innocent, but 9 times out of 10, 99%, honestly, are more Wonder Woman fans than Superman fans. Or
Yep.
it will be equal, but it would be Wonder Woman first. And for so many of the detractors to say that we don't care about neither character, but mostly of Wonder Woman, is a total lie. So, and it's kind of crazy that the relationship and the book or whatever
Luffy.
that
I love Luffy. I'm sure all two of them were pissed.
um for them to claim that Super Wonder, misunderstands Clark and Diana, for it to be hated and whatever else they want to throw. It sold over 100K, and it was a book that stayed as a bestseller until you had a writer who purposely ruined the relationship.
And I'm sure that Tomasi purposely ruined it because he was jealous that that book got all the attention that Lois didn't. But anyway, back to this.
Right.
It's like it's again, Batman says he doesn't believe in gods, but yet he has literally met the Spectre, who is the embodiment of God's wrath.
Yeah. And it is said that Batman is an atheist. So, but yeah, he doesn't believe in gods, or a god or anything like that. He even is skeptical of magic. But yet you are very close with Zatanna and yeah, Diana, or any of this. Batman is just a very weird-minded character that he can have the embodiment of magic or the embodiment of the gods in front of him, and he still won't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, to make this contrived connection, King has Bruce say that he didn't believe in God, or he believed in God, looked up or whatever, when he met Diana, when that has never been. If anything, Bruce has not never paid attention to Diana in that sense. He has never um praised her like that. It honestly just gives, again, you're trying to do this contrived connection, but he again is not genuine when it's from another writer.
And remember, this is the guy that got called out by Frank Miller for self-inserting himself into Batman. But
Right.
so to make matters worse, then we got the so basically this issue is crap, and I can't wait until we won't know necessarily how well it if it like dropped or gained in the rankings, in the 100 issue rankings, until like May. But it is nice to know that this did not make the Bleeding Cool top 10 seller list, surprising no one.
Yeah. Oh, also
Yeah.
the quote of Zeus, to say that there are men, there are gods, and then there are Batman. So basically, trying to put Batman in his own category, as again pushing him
Bruce
as
doesn't
like,
want that though.
but also, I mean, it's Zeus. Zeus would not say that. If anything, Zeus would demean the crap out of Bruce. So to again use even Zeus, the king of the gods, that's the most selfish, um, conceited, uh, demeaning type, there
What this
is.
is because King is pissy that Hulk outsold his Batman run, so he was kicked off and had to be given a pity mini series in order to complete his story. That's what it is. He's just pissy because the fan base overall rejected his Batman run. So there you go. So suck it, King.
Um, oh, there's Luffy. I think you said that Clark and Diana will have a Brady Bunch type family. Yes, they would. They would definitely have, like in Kingdom Come when they had like 5 kids. Yeah, they would definitely have a basically a Justice League of their own.
Yeah, exactly. So then you get to, well, let's see, what else? So then you get to Wonder Woman 23, which features her demon baby.
It's the Oh, one more thing about
Oh, yeah.
Aphrodite. So someone on Twitter said that the panel first, Aphrodite just randomly kissing Batman is just so, even for her as the goddess of love and everything, it's so out of character just for her, because she doesn't go around doing that like that regardless. Um, and it is just, it gives that DCAU vibe where it's kind of like all women can't resist Batman. And then you have where, out of context of the panels, it looks like Diana is sitting there jealous or something. It's just very weird going on. And then the flower, someone on Twitter said that it was a representation of Batman, kind of like, you know, um, getting excited. And it's like, in a Wonder Woman book, like, this is so inappropriate.
Exactly. Well, by the way, but it makes far more sense for a demon child in DC to be Lois. Oh my god.
The lowest comments are hilarious. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Oh my gosh, I know. But yeah, and Trinity being a demon child is, yeah, Trinity looks like a fake baby. I'm just gonna tell you that.
She, no, she looks like a Cabbage Patch. I'm telling you, she looks like a Cabbage Patch Chucky baby right here. Like this, I don't know how random this is for. First of all, this doesn't look like Wonder Woman. Like, if you, it, it's just not her, you know? And I mean, even Frank Miller, you know what? Is this again a plagiarized thing of
Oh, watch it. Watch if I swear, if she fights a Minotaur slash
Minotaur?
Centaur in this, I'm gonna say, oh, he ripped off Frank Miller. Now the plagiarism just rolls in.
But this is just so like, Diana does not need to have a baby on her back while
She
going
has the
on missions.
Amazons to babysit the baby.
And the thing is, like, where is Trinity, this Chucky baby, while Diana is in the Justice League or everywhere else?
I know. There's a reason why this run is very separate.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And
yeah, go ahead.
so with the idea of her finally, I guess, rescuing Emily, I that is honestly, this feels like uh I don't know. It just feels like it's slapped on because and Emily was reworked within this story because how does she go from being on the run to now she's captured by Mouse Man on an island somewhere? So, like this whole time, Diana wasn't looking for her, and within the 9 months, she was captured by Mouse Man. Like that is just so dumb to me.
Well, King normally does this where he brings in like random stuff. Oh, but NJ says Hippolyta better lose her divinity and come back to the baby side, the little demon. Oh, you mean where they make it where Hippolyta comes back and she comes back through Emily? That would be interesting. Like pull a Wonder Woman Earth 1. That's what I thought they were going to do. I mean, that's
I
what I would
honestly,
do. See, if King left before Trinity was born, no, but if King left before, well, actually, yes. If King left before this, and I could, that's how I would retcon it. That's actually Hippolyta being reborn, and then just get rid of Trinity. Period.
or Trinity should be, she should have been Emily's daughter from the get go because
Mm-hmm.
having Emily being pregnant with a total different character and it's
That's
like
gonna kill every Amazon.
and also I guess it's 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 like she is supposed to be Trinity's Grail, I guess. It's so lame. Like you barely know Grail is the mirror of Diana, sure, but we barely get Grail as just this formidable villain for
We
Diana.
almost did.
Yes, we almost did, but it again, it feels so contrived, and you're trying to make um Emily's daughter. First of all, we don't even know who Emily really is. Like, why should we care? She's just an OC Amazon. We don't.
And
Yes,
likely
she
will stay
battled.
that way.
Yeah, she battled Diana, when she was younger, but we don't see the depth of their relationship. We just see, okay, Diana fights this one Amazon, and whether she hates Diana, it seemed like it. And then a couple, almost 30 years later, she comes back. She's in man's world and she kills men, and then she runs away and she's pregnant. It's kind of like that whole setup does not make sense at all for us to care for this character. And then again, you said King said that issue 3, when it was announced, or when he had Serge Steele say that Emily was pregnant, that was the cliffhanger to say that, to allude basically that
But Britt, that was a red herring.
that was not a red herring. That is total uh, sugar honey iced tea.
He does that every time where like he changes like his like Britt I've said before, he changes his motive. He like he puts the blame on other people and people get like backlash. Remember when he said that Detective Chimping in the book was his pitch for Detective Chimp book, and then when it got backlash he goes, oh no, that was Sam Pear's idea.
Yeah, or Sampere did the same thing. It was like issue 4. It
No, but here's the thing. Sam Pear's thing, but like actually, I buy more because the artist has less of a say depending on the relationship with the writer. So it's more on King. And by the way, Lord Zed, they can't do that because because A, the DCU probably won't last long enough, and two, it's like no one likes Trinity. I'm just going to tell you that anyone that talks positively about those backups is talking about those backups because they like the Super Sons. That's it.
Right, but also no, Trinity cannot exist in DCU, first of all,
Oh,
because
wait,
we don't
actually,
even
first, fantastic transition. Thank you, Zed. There you go.
we don't have a Diana. And
Hmm.
even if the world is already established, Diana isn't actually, she's known, but not just like this known global hero as she used to be. So we're basically in, honestly, I would say Diana is probably year two of being Wonder Woman, maybe.
Hmm.
So to have Trinity introduced, that does not make sense. And honestly, we don't know like the the story for DCU Wonder Woman. And in order for Trinity to even exist, again, we have to go through the whole thing of Diana randomly being with Steve and Steve dying. And we don't want the same repeat of DCEU. If you wanted Trinity to be introduced, you might as well have it kept DCEU version of Wonder Woman because she is the
Exactly.
one who's obsessed with Steve.
Well, no. When she's written by Patty Jenkins, she's obsessed. When she was
Yeah,
handled by Zack
true.
Snyder, she wasn't. She said, "I once knew a man that would have loved to fly this." That's the one time they mentioned Steve. Anyway, so then we get this piece of work. So the reason we call it Daughter of Batman is because, again, instead of having like one, here's the thing: all of the issues so far are her interacting with the Bat family. Like, wait a minute. She's the daughter of Wonder Woman. Can a Wonder Girl show up in this once?
Absolutely not.
And Luffy, why is she so terrible? Who's writing her? That should tell you all you need to know.
And the thing is, what makes Trinity terrible is that her conception is awful because Diana has never had that development of wanting a child. She, there was no development. If it was with Clark, we've seen that development, through post crisis. And again, it makes sense for her to want a child because Clark gave her that opening of, I want, of, that wanting a life outside of super heroics and stuff.
Oh, and
But
real quick, I just want to address this in reference to Tom King's Wonder Woman over here. He goes, "Oh wait, so the Amazons are devil occultists now because of the goat head." That's what it kind
yeah,
of looks like.
that is what it looks like.
And I'm like, what? Anyway, just wanted to make sure I address all the super chats. Anyway, all of DC needs to be scrapped. Not all of it, but yeah, he will do every. Because remember when he was coming on to Wonder Woman, he said he had a list of things he didn't want to have in his run: the Wonder Girls and the Gods in a Wonder Woman book.
And the fact that he is now using them is basically like a be careful what you wish for type
Well,
thing.
no. Here's the thing, Britt. I have a theory. When you get to, I think that the reason why the Wonder Girls don't act in any way like they should is because what had happened was, I think he originally had like different Amazons that were supposed to be in the run, but DC made him put the Wonder Girls in, so he just essentially um Microsoft Word replacement the names.
That
That's what
is
I think he's
just,
gonna do, because you know how he forces his the characters into his own BS stories.
yeah, and even if it doesn't fit the character,
No, he doesn't care.
yeah, he does not
This is a
care at
guy that
all.
has bragged that he loves ruining people's favorite characters.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He could try and play it off as a joke, but I'm sorry, dude. You don't get to make that joke.
That is, wow.
And I wonder why I ever stood up for this guy. Huh. Honestly, I would love to go back in time to an earlier episode of the podcast and stuff, back before this run started, when I was like, this would go really well or really good. And I just want to take myself from that time period and slap myself in the face.
Jeez.
That's it. Looking back at it, I should not have expected anything except Tom King's utter worst, because the man does not know how to write characters that aren't depressed or in his own twisted version of them.
Well, the thing is, Jerry, you always are optimistic and you try to give things a chance.
It's my cross to bear.
So it's kind of like it's not your fault. You have if with how DC and some of the fans of course they are fans of Tom King. You have this expectation of a writer doing his best when he is given accolades. Why is he given the Eisner's awards and stuff like that? Honestly, the
Not
Eisner's,
nominated, not one, nominated.
well, even nominated, it still feels like basically the Oscars, and you know how like the most mediocre, unknown movies are nominated, and then the most
Politics, Brit, politics.
basically, yeah. So that is how the Oscars are is basically how comics are with the Eisners and stuff like that. So with him being
That's why if a
nominated,
series is like Eisner nominated or Eisner winning, I'm like, yeah, but isn't any good. I
and
don't care what some anonymous panel voted for.
what's so weird is how the Wonder Woman, his book was nominated for only like 2 issues. It's like
And didn't win.
it didn't
Oh,
win,
trust
but
me,
it's still the
we
fact that it was
dodged a
nominated.
bullet, Brit, because if it had won, there was no, it would be, there's no way DC would be more likely to keep him on the book even with failing sales.
Yeah, but even with nominating for only 2 issues, it's just that is very much a PR thing and so just out of touch. When they've had, awards and Eisners, I don't think that was a taken serious. Maybe Kingdom Come era. And that is I think that was the last time DC had like a book that really just defined DC and really gave it that elevation it needed. But from the early 2000s to now, yeah, DC has been struggling to actually give something that's worth that type of recognition.
Yeah, exactly. So now let's conclude our slides with something more positive.
A
Absolute Wonder
palette
Woman.
cleanse, basically.
Oh my god, the art just looks so good.
Baby Diana is so cute. Like she is the
I had
total
an idea
opposite.
that relates to this, Brit, by the way.
I know, I know. I know. I think we're on the same wavelength because I had an idea too. So
Yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about, but it looks so good. The god's design looks so good. Again, the art looks like it's glowing. And then I love Diana fighting in the gladiatorial pit of hell. Like it's like a
yes.
manticore. Again,
Um,
wait, another mythological creature, the manticore. This is so much more Wonder Woman.
yes. Honestly, I say I like Sherman's art. You know, some it needs to be cleaned up just a little bit, but but it has the unique tone, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, this art
I prefer
is
this one.
it I definitely prefer it. And it just really fits the um alluring nature of even if Diana was raised in hell and you get that dark uh you know nature of her and well of her environment, but you also give she has such um an alluring aura, and it just fits her so well. And I love her eyes. Like
Mm-hmm.
she is giving the Amazon that
Real quick, I
majestic.
just want to bring up one thing. Not evil in any way,
No, not
Lamb.
evil.
Not in any way.
No,
And
she's not Tom King's Wonder Woman now.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And yes, exactly. And Connie, it is really good. Like, it is remarkably good. Like, again, I say this every single damn week. This shouldn't work as well as it does. Like, Brit and I fully expected this to turn into female Kratos, but no, Thompson considered that, but she was like, I couldn't make it work. So it's literally just It is classic Wonder Woman, but she was raised in hell. But she still is Wonder Woman. So yes, I encourage everyone, read this series. You will not be disappointed at all.
Yeah, and especially because we see the what Thompson said about it being organically feminist and it having that mother-daughter relationship at the central core with Diana and Cersei, and the fact that that is the central core of Wonder Woman story, period. And and we talked about that before the show of like would absolute Wonder Woman and be more accepted if Tom King's book was a little bit better. Honestly, the way it's a lot of different factors, but the way Tom King is writing makes it so much worse for him in his book. But it's just the fact that just the concept overall within his book is how he messes up a key component of the mother-daughter relationship. How he made Wonder Woman her purpose and the central of her being about a man, and that is not her story. Um, and that, of course, that man is Steve, but her story is not of a love interest. A it is a story of mothers and daughters, and even with Trinity, not only do you have her associated more with Batman characters, but also Tom King said in an interview that her book is about fathers and daughters. And it's like, wow, you were really taking away um the motherly aspect of what Wonder Woman is. And
Exactly.
what absolute
And remember, Tom King only likes Steve. And by okay, that is a bastardized version of Cersei. That's not actual Cersei. Anyway, go on, Brit.
And what Absolute Wonder Woman does is it brings back what Wonder Woman truly means, which is having that inspiration of a mother, and how we see how Diana being still that pure soul, um, she changes the environment around her. The environment isn't changing her. And again, it honestly feels like King is basically an inverted version or a bizarro version of Wonder Woman. Like he
Pretty
is
much.
doing just the total opposite of what Wonder Woman actually um is in her purpose. It's kind of like he knows that Wonder Woman is a feminist character. She is more about female empowerment, but no, he's going to make it all male centric.
Exactly. So now we're done with the PowerPoint slide. There's something that we're gonna do now. So as you guys know, if you guys watched yesterday, last Friday's Comics League Dark, we did a live reading of Action Comics #1. So I thought Britt and I should do that. So Britt, I have selected a scene from DC that I think you would be very interested in doing a live reading of.
Okay, so what would that be?
We are doing okay. Where is the? I'm gonna hang on. Okay. We are doing the last few pages of Justice League 12.
Oh,
You had to know that this was going to happen, Brett.
all right.
Unless there is another book you would rather read.
No.
Okay. So obviously, I will be playing the part of Kal-El. Brit will be playing the part of Wonder Woman. I will share the screen, and I put this on panel viewer, so it'll like zoom in on it for you. So let's do this. So I will be Superman, obviously. Diana. How's Steve? Wait,
Angry.
hang on. Yeah, there you go. Okay, go.
Angry.
It's all you.
Is that?
Yep, it's all you.
Oh, jeez. When I first came here from Paradise Island, I was shocked to see the men and women weren't at war like I'd grown up believing. They were in relationships. For a short time, I thought their relationships were simple. If they if they liked one another, they were together. But I couldn't have been more wrong.
Relationships are complicated. For us, even more so. I have another identity.
The reporter.
My name's Clark Kent.
Why do you have an identity like that?
I grew up with it, and I kept it once Superman came on the scene.
And it's worked.
To protect the people I'm close to.
And it's worked.
I don't know. I still have to keep secrets from everyone. So how close I am to anyone is debatable.
We're not like Zeus, but we're not like them either.
We're not like anyone.
People like us are really lonely, aren't we? Really alone, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Still you.
Oh, do you ever feel alone?
Of course I do. There you go.
The kiss.
And the keys. And there's one more. I think there's one more thing that I think we could do. By the way, if we'll definitely be doing more of this because doing live readings is really fun. So hang on.
Especially when you get to give Lois voice.
I always do. I gave Lois the most annoying voice last night, just out of spite. It's also out of spite because Robert's there and he's a big Lois fan. So I'm like, ha ha. All right, here we go. Here we go. Here's one more. This is from Superman Wonder Woman by Charles Sewell.
Which issue?
Issue 1.
All right.
The London Conversation. All right.
Okay, perfect. Okay, hold on. Get it.
I swoosh. And by if you need me to zoom in on anything, just let me know. All right. Hi.
Okay. Hold on, I'm trying to get it on my end so I can see. Oh geez, technical difficulty. Hold on.
It's all good. It's all good.
Okay. This is lovely. I've never seen anything like it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. It's a cutting from one of the plants I keep at the fortress. You can't water it. Use cooking oil instead. It's beautiful and a little bit strange. It made me think of you.
Oh, Clark. If I want it smooth, I'll be with Hal Jordan. That is such. Why was New 52 Diana was so shady to Hal?
Well, yeah. My favorite line is when it said, is when she said, "This gives me no pleasure." I'm sure you've heard that before. but anyway, so okay. Continue on.
You have so many wonderful things up in that fortress of yours. Have you ever thought about just letting people see some of them?
Okay, here we go.
After all, I
Yeah,
think,
there you go.
yeah. After all, if people knew more about us, if they knew there wasn't anything to be afraid of, we
Flowers aren't the only thing I keep in the fortress, Diana. I agree with you. I don't like keeping secrets, but some things you have to.
like us.
Like us, but that's both a secret we have to keep and one I want to keep. We give them everything. This is ours, at least for now.
I have a gift for you as well.
Oh, oh,
Yes, something from my culture. You're the most powerful being on the planet. Technical difficulty again. Or at least one of them. My brother Hephaestus made this for me. He tells me it's sharp enough to split an atom in two. It's a staggeringly powerful weapon.
that's incredibly generous, Diana. But I don't need a.
Just like you, Clark. But it doesn't matter how powerful your weapon is
Whoa,
if you can't hit anything with it. You're so strong, Clark, but you've never been trained to fight. No, wait. But you've never been trained to fight. Power isn't everything. I, on the other hand, studied under the actual god of war since I was a child. You have things to learn, and I'm just the woman to teach you.
all right. Here we go. Okay, and I think yeah, we'll stick with that for right now. But you play a great Diana.
Thank you. I
But
really wish we would have had more of Diana actually training Clark.
yeah,
Like,
if we actually saw that, that would be really cool.
I mean, that was something that it also again reiterates that power isn't everything. Like she literally says it. Yeah, you're strong, physically strong, but you basically need to learn strategy and is basically like the emotion and the mental fight as well. And yeah, Charles, he is the best writer for that. Um, as I said earlier, I believe Conrad could write it too.
Hmm.
And if anyone were to just pick up this book and just go from there, that would be perfect.
Exactly. So, Britt, where can do you want to tease us with any stories that we have incoming?
Yes. So it was one story that I already had, but I'm doing a few touch ups with it. I've already talked about it like episodes ago, but it's when Diana is sick, quote unquote, and Cal has to take care of her on uh, Themyscira. And of course, you have Hippolyta, that's sort of playing matchmaker as a mother and seeing her, daughter and this um, guy who has shown himself worthy for the trust of the Amazons. So she is playing matchmaker, and it's just a probably 4 chapter thing, but tweaking the first chapter, finishing the second, and both of those should be up probably within the next week. Then more tonight chapters I've almost completed, and then back to Shelterverse, which is chapter 4 of Shelter, story 1, and Odyssey. Odyssey is still like the number one story because it's so emotional, and especially with chapter 2 of, again, as chapter 1 having the flashbacks and then putting it all together with the present time and showing how complicated Clark and Diana's relationship is as a couple, but also as parents.
Exactly.
And one more thing
Yeah.
with the Instagram. Okay, so again, with just the overall talk of New 52 Superman and yes, this channel was created because of our love for New 52 pairing and also creating the fanfics. But it's also just the fact of giving a platform, and thank you, Jared, for SuperWonder fans to know that no one is alone with that, because I think that a lot of the detractors want to silence, you know, fans who don't align with traditional um,
Yeah.
pairings. And with that said, so the Instagram has gained over 100 followers just for Superman Day alone. um, it is showing how the interest that, regardless of what DC does or doesn't do with Super Wonder, and even if a writer purposely wants to, ruin the relationship or ignore it, whatever they want to do, that there is still outside interest. And for the Instagram to continue to grow, and it's at 69 point 4K, it's almost at 70K. It really shows, again, the interest is there for the pairing, and shows how it is a positive pairing. And if given the chance, it will be something very special, but also as popular as it was with the New 52.
Exactly. So stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs to General Zod. Zois and Max about for life. We will see you later. Bye-bye.